Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving values contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Okay, episode 432, Home Team. A lot to cover, folks. And by the way, last week when the debate was going on with President Biden and Trump, we were missing a BizDoc. He is officially back. He's officially back. He's here with us. We can now say where he was. He was at the Austria Formula One fight. We got a lot of stories to cover. I don't know if you guys saw a video of Jamie Foxx. Little interesting video of Jamie Foxx. Obviously, the Supreme Court rule. Trump has significant immunity from prosecution. Joey Reid is not too happy about some of the stuff that's taking place. Biden's camp is being asked to leave. Some are saying it's all on Jill Biden. Why he's still in it. Gavin Newsom joins panel to discuss presidential debate until Adam Carolla catches him off guard with a COVID question.
Love it.
Out of all the questions, and for whatever reason, those guys have a history together, but he keeps going back. I mean, if he keeps going back, maybe there's a reason for
likes the abuse.
Why he keeps going back to being there. A new poll shows Biden narrowly trailing Trump in New Hampshire. Tom said earlier, the last time a Republican won in New Hampshire was Jesus, which means no one's ever done this before. That was a Tom line. You had to hear it when he said this to us, but we're going to talk about New Hampshire, why that's important. Trump predicts Biden won't drop out and says Biden's problem is not his age. In his post-debate speech, Nikki Haley warns GOP to get younger, to get ready for a younger, more vibrant replacement for Biden. Who could that be, right? Again, a lot of people are thinking it's the man from California. Almost half of Democrats said Biden should step aside. These are the likely Democratic presidential candidates if Biden drops out. We'll talk about that. Biden's family privately criticized top advisors for pushing their ouster at Camp David meeting. Van Jones, he says, high likelihood Biden's victory ultimately means Kamala Harris will be president. Mark Cuban is still betting on Biden. I don't know if you've read the tweet on what he said. We'll read it to you. And I want your thoughts on this when you see what Mark Cuban says with his tweet about Biden. Bill Maher calls for Biden to withdraw from presidential race. He is going to lose. It's so apparent. And then Bill Maher says Biden shit the bed at the debate. His new Secret Service name is Amber Heard, is what he said. Now, that's freaking funny, man, for him to say that. If you don't know, you don't know. Woman alleges United Airlines removed them from their flight after accidentally misgendering attendant. Okay, and wait till you have I'm going to show you guys a video about the United Airlines CEO, which is pretty wild. France, far right, wins first round. A 28-year-old, by the way, you got to see this here. Iran threatens obliterating war with Israel if it launches all-out assault against Hezbollah. John Deere to execute big layoffs in 2 states and then plans to shift the jobs to Mexico, out of all the places. And that's not a state, by the way. In America, it should be, but it's not a state. Some say it should be. Wealthy Americans are anxious about making ends meet. Real estate expert predicts huge changes in the housing market. The people who ditch smartphones for dumb phones for a calmer life. Okay, maybe it's smarter to have a dumb phone than a smartphone. Like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, Hampton's donors divided on Biden after fundraiser, but everyone complained about the traffic. And then we got a couple of the stories here. Them mega donors wanted to hold an intervention, convinced Biden to step down after debate implosion. New York Times called him to step out. Federal Reserve preferred inflation metric goes down to 2.6. How Tractor Supply decided to end DEI and fast. And then one last story. Gen Z shopping decisions are heavily driven by TikTok and influencers. So those are the stories we're going to go through. But let me give you guys an announcement here. This is massive announcement. Would you like to meet Dwayne Johnson at the Vault Conference? Let me tell you how. We announced our last Minnect contest, which was absolutely insane. We were together at the Cigar Lounge till midnight. We had some of the best, I wish that was recorded. We had some of the best conversations together. Dinner at Casa D'Angelo. It was such a big hit that we're announcing the second official Minnect contest. Listen up, everybody. This is big. First one was a big hit. This is big, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. Again, Like the last one that we announced, there's going to be lightweights, middleweights, and heavyweights for experts to compete in. For users asking questions, maybe you've never downloaded the app before. Anybody that hasn't downloaded the app as of July 1st, this contest is as of yesterday, July 1st. If you've never downloaded the app Minnect, you start Minnecting, you're going to be competing against other people for Minnecting the most with others. A Minnect is you ask somebody a question and they get back to you. So there's going to be a lightweight and a heavyweight. Lightweight is somebody that's never downloaded the app Minnect, and that starts as of yesterday. You download it and you start Minnecting. And then heavyweight is somebody that has Minnected before July 1st, and you also compete against people that were competing prior to that, right? You guys will be competing. Lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight, then you have users and experts, each category. Top three will be what we're going to do this year that's going to be slightly different with this Minnect contest. Top 5 of each category will be invited. If you attend the Vol Conference, you'd have to buy the ticket, travel, everything yourself. But we'll be announcing winners at the Vol Conference. You'll be walking across the stage, nearly 1,000 people in attendance. You'll be walking across the stage, and everyone will be publicly recognize you at the Vol Conference. On top of that, first place on each category, lightweight, middleweight, superweight, heavyweight, of experts and users. And a lightweight expert is somebody that's never Minnected before. You download the app and you start sharing with your audience, so they start asking questions. First place of each category. At the end of the meeting, when I'm having a conversation with the Rock in the back, you come to the back, you meet the Rock, and you take a picture with them at the Vol Conference. On top of that, you'll be invited to a special dinner that we're having at Minnect. You'll be invited to the CO Lounge at the Vol Conference. And then, aside from that, all of those names that we mentioned, you will be escorted by a sprinter to my hotel, and you'll come to my suite, and we will spend a couple hours together talking, strategizing like the last one. All I can tell you is the last one we did was a massive hit. This one's going to be bigger because you're getting recognition in front of everybody. And even the top people of winners, we're going to put your Minnect QR code out there so some people can Minnect you from the community of Valuetainment and Vault community, which is a massive community. So there you have it. The contest started yesterday. If you haven't started Minnecting yet, download the app, start Minnecting. Heck, who knows? I think, Vinny, how many Minnects are you away from 3,000?
Right now, I am 2 away from hitting 3,000.
Wow.
Hey,
Moments away.
Let's see if you can go pull up that QR code, Rob, with all the people on the. Go Minnect now. Be the first one to get Vinny to 3,000. Send a Minnect to Vinny to get him over 3,000. He passed up Tom. Tom, I think, is only about 20 or 30 away from getting to 3,000. Adam just got to 2,000. So download the app, start Minnecting. Cannot wait to spend that time with you guys at the Vault Conference. All right, so let's get right into it. Stories. I think we have to lead with the main story, which is the Supreme Court ruling has Trump has significant immunity over prosecution. This is a Wall Street Journal story, and let's go through this together. Hang on one second for me. Here we go. All right. So the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that former president enjoys sweeping immunity for their acts while in office, significantly impacting Donald Trump prosecution for allegedly attempting to subvert the 2020 election. Chief Justice John Roberts stated that the president may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers and is entitled at a minimum to presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. The ruling dismissed parts of the prosecution's case against Trump, including his alleged efforts to use the Justice Department to support unsubstantiated election fraud claims, and unusual because it just imposes limited fines or prison time and is in line with other punishment for criminal offenses. Prosecutors cannot inquire into Trump's motives and cannot use his official acts as evidence for unofficial ones, making it challenging to hold a trial before election. Tom.
Well, I think John Roberts got it right. And his quote, may not be prosecuting for exercising core constitutional powers. The left is freaking out this morning because they are missing that phrase because they're in denial. They don't want to hear it. Core constitutional powers. In other words, if the president is acting as a president, you can't turn around and use a law later to say, hey, I'm going to get back at you. And by the way, over the course of the springtime, they also reference this lightly in the ruling for Colorado because they says they can't create that the states and the Congress can't be allowed to create what was called electoral mayhem. What do they mean by that? That means if I don't like your guy, I'm just going to start prosecuting him. I really don't care. I don't like I don't like that executive order on this. I don't like that. So I'm going to come after you. And so the dissent by Sotomayor was disingenuous at best. She said, oh, we have kings now. So you're a king. You can do whatever you want. You could have SEAL Team 6 take out an opponent. That was ridiculous hyperbole from Sotomayor, because of course that wouldn't happen. If the president used an assassin squad to assassinate a world leader, which is a technique that happens around the world in elections in different countries not named the United States, that's it. So I thought Sotomayor's response was bad, but this is the Supreme Court getting it right. And what we have here, forget that it's Donald Trump, if you can. Judicial activism has been struck down now 3 times this year to let our processes and our democracy and our constitutional outline play out.
By the way, you know what is scary for Democrats? How many seats did he flip on his first term? Rob, can you raise my audio a little bit? I'm super low.
I think 3.
How many seats did he flip on his first term?
3. Neil Gorsuch.
Yep.
Amy Coney Bryant.
Yeah.
And
Amy Coney Barrett. Yeah. That was 2.
Yeah,
Kavanaugh.
Barrett.
And then Kavanaugh. Yeah.
So check this out.
How can I forget Brett Kavanaugh?
So he's got 2 more that he could potentially flip if he wins. Do you realize if he flips 5, that's potentially 30, 40 years of sanity that will be ran, because they'll always protect the decisions that will be made on what happens. Adam, your thoughts on the story?
Well,
the Supreme Court.
Let's start with the fact that Trump just had the best week ever. You talk about after the criminal charges were weighed against him in New York, look at what's happened since then. He's raised how many hundreds of millions of dollars? He's raised Biden, which is new for him. The debate, which we'll talk about today, what a disaster for Biden. I mean, we'll have that whole conversation. And then the coup de grace right here, the Supreme Court is like, he's good. Like, you can't go after this guy. So the Trump camp could not have a better week. So if you look into this situation right here, we talked about, this is like probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we talked about the fact of who has the most power in America. Which entity?
Virtual governments,
right.
The president, Congress, billionaires, yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we didn't have the president in the top 3. We had tech companies, we had billionaires, we had...
I see where you're going.
All of a sudden, the president looks a little loftier than ever. And it's not about Trump, and it's not even just about Biden. It's sort of raising the executive office to what is now known as absolute immunity. Now, there's a difference between absolute immunity and what they call presumptive immunity, which we get into the weeds here a little bit. So basically, here's the bottom line with this. Anything within the official executive roles of your job is completely unquestionable. And it deserves immunity. So, for instance, you can't be prosecuted for any actions you take doing your actual job, i.e. national security, i.e. intelligence, and wait for this one, foreign policy. So people are like, George W. Bush is a war criminal. It's like, well, based on this, they're not really going to go after him. Obama and the drone strikes. Nah, that's not, it can't be, Trump, January 6th. No, it's all within his official duty. Now, what is not within official duty, these presumptive immunities, like, how Trump... one time he said, if I shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, no, if you shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, like, they're going to come after you. Or even Bill Clinton with sort of the sexual harassment stuff, that's not within your role of executive privilege. But this was a great week for Trump, and this was the coup de grace.
You know what? The first thing that came to my mind when I saw this ruling, Tom, we were all texting in the group chat, was Clarence Thomas came to my head, and how yesterday's ruling must have been like a day of joy and vindication because of the history of him and Clarence Thomas and Biden. Think about the history between them. Thomas confirmation hearing, Tom, in 1991, where Biden was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And remember that embarrassment and the hell that they put him through. And Clarence Thomas called it, He said it was a high-tech lynching. He said,
Correct.
for uppity blacks who in any way deem to think for themselves, do for themselves, to have different ideas, you will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by the committee of the U.S. Senate rather than being hung from a tree. And Joe Biden was the main lyncher. He was the head of that committee. And I think yesterday, Pat, what a comeback. 30 years later, Joe Biden thought that he was going to ruin Clarence Thomas's career, and then Clarence Thomas gets the last laugh. And this is, PBD, I think it was a documentary, how he's saying here that Joe Biden has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Can we see this?
Yeah, go for
Go
it.
ahead, Robbie. 30 years later, Joe Biden thought that he was going to ruin Clarence Thomas's career.
Hold on. That's,
Was
that Clarence Thomas or Vincent?
I think that was Clarence Thomas, or that might have been me in my own
Sorry,
head.
my
No, it's all good.
apologies.
Here we go.
Welcome to the blinding lights.
Look at that smile.
Finding out what you mean when you say that you would apply the natural law philosophy to the Constitution is, in my view, the single most important task of this committee.
Senator Biden was very focused on natural law. How did that go?
Who knows? I have no idea what he was talking about.
I just want to make sure we all know what we're talking about here. That you and I know, at least,
No,
what we're
you
talking
don't.
about here. There's a fervent and aggressive school of thought that wishes to see natural law further inform the Constitution than it does now, argued against by the positivist led by Judge Bork. Now, again, that may be lost on all the people. You know and I know
What? Oh.
what we're talking about.
I have to be perfectly honest with you. You sit there and you have no idea what they are talking about.
Watch that last part.
All I know is that he was asking me these questions about natural law. One of the things you do in hearings is you have to sit there and look
great.
attentively at people you know have no idea what they're talking about.
I had to cut that together because think about Tom, how amazing is it that the tides of history turn, and then how good Clarence Thomas must feel 30 years later he waited, and the decision that they're making
Yeah.
is for a highly politicized.
And by the way, you brought that
let me
back
ask
to-
PBD a question. I want to get PBD's opinion because he even weighed in, and I'm going to circle back to the State of the Union. Sorry, Tom. Just 3 short months ago, Biden literally lectured the Supreme Court. You remember that? And they all
Yes.
just sat there, frozen, almost solidified as one voice. At this point, the Supreme Court, the chickens have come home to roost. Thoughts on this Supreme Court decision, and ultimately Clarence Thomas and John Roberts.
So
weighing
a
in.
couple things. So one, remember when Chuck Schumer told, I want to say Rachel Maddow, hey, Trump going after, what do you call it, CIA and all
There's
these
6
guys.
ways of Sunday to come after you.
So 6 ways of Sunday to come after you. Okay. Guess what? Probably a good idea to have a good relationship with the Supreme Court. It's probably not a good idea to go lecture them like they're kids, and you do it and you publicly humiliate them while they're sitting in front of you and you're the president. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea to do that, right? And even AOC came out and she said, I'm going to be asking for the impeachment of Supreme Court. I don't know, did you guys see this
what
or
is
not?
she talking about?
But let me tell you guys this. Here's the thing that no one's talking about. So, okay, immunity for the president. Here's a simple question for you, Adam, Tom,
sir.
Vinny. Let's face it. Which president in the next 50 years, left or the right, you think is going to be using these privileges more? Presidents on the left or the right?
on the left.
Exactly.
Totally.
So to me,
They don't get their way, they try other ways.
First of all, when I heard this, I'm like, oh, shit. I mean, I get it right now. You're going to celebrate and be like, oh, you're Trump.
Yeah.
All right, go to 2038. And so, well, the president's got immunity. Well, the president's got immunity. Well, there's Republicans. You guys wanted this. Trump. So why are you upset? He's got immunity. He's got immunity.
Exactly.
And you're going to have to eat your words.
Yep.
Just letting you know. So do your victory dance and whatever you guys got going on. Great. And I understand the part where the part where I agree with this, but it's so risky, is that, look, you know, these guys have to have an element of decision making without worried about shit. Freaking the moment I'm done being a president, I'm going to jail. then I'm not making any decision. So you also don't want a president that's going to be risking making decisions, because an indecisive president is bad for a society and a nation, right? I'll give you sports, okay? I would never own an NBA team. I would never, ever own an NBA team. Why?
Even for a good deal.
I would never own an NBA team in the current guidelines that they have, because the owners always get screwed because of the contracts. The owner, the way the contracts in the NBA are set up is in a way that owners have to pay no matter what. I mean, it's so many different guys can be like, well, I'm not going to be playing. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. Eventually, where the Pelicans were able to put a contract together for Zion Williamson, where he was forced to play and had to be under a certain weight. Think about how technical you have to be to create a contract that you have to keep your weight a certain level to get your full pay. I am not a fan of the way the NBA players. So when they said, well, we got to do collective bargaining agreement, Players Association won today. The Players Association won. Yeah, you know who lost NBA? Who? Fans. I don't watch regular season games.
Nope.
You know what's the only regular season game I'm going to watch this season? When they say
Christmas Day or something?
No, Bronny James being in. I just want to see that moment with father and son.
Cool, man.
That's it. That's the only thing I'm going to be watching regular season. I don't give a shit about the rest of it. So yes, players may have won, fans lost. So yes, this may be good now, but I'm telling you right now, conservatives on the right will be complaining about this for the next 50 to 100 years, way after we're no longer here. They'll abuse this in many creative ways, and they'll put it in your face.
Yeah, I have three super fast points. Point number one, you read AOC's tweets, and what you can see is how the left is arrogant. They are so arrogant. Our decision is the right decision, and to hell with the checks and balances, to hell with the constitutional authority, the way it works. We just want to invoke our will, and if we don't get it this way, we should get it another way. You read her tweet. Point two, thank you for bringing up Joe Biden in that hearing. You have to remember the third day of the hearing, how Joe Biden looked much, much different. It's because a little coterie of individuals came and visited Mr. Biden, Senator Biden at that time, led by C. Boyden Gray, who is the chief counsel for Bush Sr. And they presented to him things he had written in the Wall Street Journal about busing. We all know about that article. And they said, we think they should reprint this and compare it to the position and statements you're taking yesterday. And so that's when Biden turned and went the other way, because he realized he had just driven down a dead-end street. And so he deserved to be called out. And that was Biden with racist tendencies about the way he wanted schools to continue to be segregated. To be, completely segregated. It was horrifying. And the third point is, Pat, you're right. What I read yesterday is that Watergate, Nixon is still guilty. Monica Lewinsky, Clinton is still guilty. We have to be careful here, because the left is going to push over and blur the lines of what they go after. They want to go after anything. They don't think they can get their way here. You're absolutely right. And that's what they're going to use it. And fortunately, the Supreme Court has put a protection, not a protection, a confirmation that the protection has already existed.
So Tom, I'm 45. You're 49. We have all our,
we're all in our 40s.
We're in all our 40s.
God bless you all.
Yeah. But here's what I want you to think about, okay? So let's flip it. Let's say the left Supreme Court, they have it 6-3, and it's 2054, okay? What's 2054? 30 years from now, okay? And now they have immunity, and they have Supreme Court 6-3. What do you think they're going to be doing? Well, how do you think they're going to be? What do you think they'll be applying? What do you think they'll be implementing? So it's very easy. Anytime we, when we're running a company and, we'd be running an initiative or a new guideline for the insurance. We're going to moving forward. We're going to do X, Y, Z. This is what we're going to be doing. I'd sit there. I'm like, guys, this may be good for right now for the next 30, 60, 90. You know how big of a problem this is going to be in 5 years? There's no way we can do this. We're not doing that. Even 2 weeks ago, we made a decision. Remember 2 weeks ago when I wanted to do something with a contest and you kind of like, we were in a room like, what if we do this? I said, no, this is good for the next 2 weeks, but it's going to destroy the habit in the next 5 years with what we've done in a placement, persistency, all these things that we've improved.
Consequences and reflections from the forward, and you have to say back.
So I don't know. Right now, celebrate, because I'm sure, people are single-minded. The fact that, hey, as long as he gets in, that's all I care about. I totally get it. Celebrate that. But I'm telling you, long-term, in 20, 30 years, you'll be remembering this day, and you'll say, they're abusing it. It was never meant to be abused. The immunity was never meant to be abused. What do you think they're going to be doing?
Abusing.
What do you think they're going to be doing? You're giving them the green light to abuse this new ruling.
Yeah, Trump didn't win. The Constitution won.
Yeah.
But they're still coming after the Constitution.
Yeah, I think the focus right here is Trump, but the real story here is the power of the Supreme Court. Remember when Trump ran in 2016, like he was sort of campaigning to the evangelicals? He's like, you and me, I might not like Trump, but there's a little something called the Supreme Court, and we're gonna fill the court with conservatives. This was the whole abortion debate, and he was absolutely right. And then when Biden won in 2020, there was conversations of what, Pat? You remember this conversation about packing the court? All right, there's 9 justices. We're going to add 2 more to even the balance because it's 6-3 right now. So Biden is going to pack the court and, bring on 2 more judges and sort of even it out. But basically this does the following. Supreme Court has massive power in this country. We think that it's just the executive office or just Congress, but just they're waiting in the wings. There's 3 branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. But the judicial power, you might not know all their names. You might not know what's going on, but behind closed doors, Supreme Court running this country.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to this with all the stories about Biden. Trump predicts Biden won't be dropping out and says Biden's problem is not his age. This is a talk he gave right after the debate that took place. Obviously, it's been a rough weekend for the Bidens. But, Rob, if you got this clip, go ahead and play this clip of President Trump. Go ahead.
Joe Biden's problem is not his age. It's not his anything, really. It's got no problem other than it's his competence. He's grossly incompetent. They keep saying old. I know people that are much older than him that are doing unbelievable things, making a fortune. I knew a man that at 79, he was never a success, and he made $1 billion and a half from 79 to 92. And that's what it is. It's not his age. It's his competence. He's not respected anywhere in the world. Our country.
Okay, so that's his message, right? Now, these are the likely Democratic presidential candidates if Biden drops out, okay? As rough debate prompts calls to stand down. And by the way, this is a lot of different people. Van Jones, billionaire donors, the list goes on. Following President Joe Biden's rocky debate performance, there's growing concern within his party that he should step aside to avoid a Trump victory. Potential replacements include Vice President Kamala Harris, whose approval rating is below 40, raising concerns about her electability despite being the most obvious de facto choice. California Governor Gavin Newsom, rumored to have run a shadow campaign, has dismissed the possibility of running and pledged allegiance to Biden. Other governors like J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer, Colorado's Jared Polis, and Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, who all won their races by double digits in 2022, are also stomping for Biden and have ruled out against him. Senator Bernie Sanders, who considered running if there was an open primary, has since endorsed Biden. Third-party candidates like RFK and Cornel West, as well Democratic primary contender Representative Dean Phillips, are not seen as viable alternatives, but could use Biden's potential dropout to build support for their campaigns. Tom.
So it's interesting. That list you have here, Data for Progress, popped some numbers yesterday. And this is everybody you mentioned. And I'm going to run down here really fast. Trump stays locked in at 48% against all these people. Versus Biden, only 45. Versus Harris, she gets 45. Pete, 44. Mayor Pete. Booker, 44.
Tom, hang on. You're saying this, the visual's got to be there for audience to see. Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're saying that let the audience also see it. Rob, do you know what he's talking about?
Rob, Data for Progress. I sent you the link yesterday. Data for Progress. Scroll down, and it shows you all the candidates, how they do against Trump. Well over, it was a very solid.
Is this the one, Tom?
Yep, that's it. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. One more. Keep going. And you'll find all the, yep, keep going. and they go against the other candidates.
That's
Keep
it.
going. One more.
Is that it?
That's awareness. There it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Head to head. So as you can see here, the undecided stays between 9 and 11. Now, that undecided in this poll was Green, Lib, Kennedy, and undecided. So there's a bucket in there. Does that make sense? All of those. And you look at it, Trump versus Biden. This is national. When you get into electoral and state by state, that's a different story. But on the national level, it doesn't matter. Biden versus Harris, it's the same thing. 48-45 Trump. And then Mayor Pete gets only 44, Booker 44, Newsom 44, Whitmer 44, Klobuchar, Minnesota 43, then Shapiro and Pritzker you just brought up 43. So basically you can see there's an entrenchment. It doesn't matter who's there.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit more undecided when you get to the candidates that are a little bit more unknown. But right now, even on a national level, remember, this has been unusual. The national polls for 6 months, Biden's been about 1 point ahead of Trump on the nationals, and it gets different when you look at state by state on the Electoral College. But this shows that what America is saying is, I'm locking in, and there is no big spike for any one Democrat candidate at this hour.
So this means no matter who they bring in, Trump still got a lead over him, regardless of who it is.
Today,
yeah. But if you look at that, Tom, go to who's the second to the last one, Rob? Is it Pritzker? Because our camera's covering it. Shapiro, go a little higher. Okay, Pritzker's the last one. The independent that gets the most not sure is Shapiro. So that's a 3-point lead, 3-point lead, 3-point lead, 2-point lead. So he's got a 2-point lead on Whitmer. He's got a 2-point lead on Booker. He's got a 3-point lead on Newsom, 3-point lead on Buttigieg, and a 3-point lead on. Yeah, that's interesting to see what's going to be happening. Now, from today, with where, by the way, can you pull up Mark Cuban's tweet while we're going through this? So here's Mark Cuban after the debate. Because there's some people that are saying, we got to replace him, we got to replace him, we got to replace him. This is Mark Cuban. His performance was awful, but so was Trump's. Biden was feeble. Trump couldn't directly answer a single question and lied with every response, which is kind of funny. We'll play a CNN clip of how many times Biden lied, which, Rob, if you can find that afterwards while we're going through this. But, okay, Mark, we'll follow. The question is what features voters believe make a better president, feeble, capable, and ethical versus vigorous, unethical, and incapable of telling the truth. All right, I'll vote ethical every time. The reality is Joe wasn't capable last night of debating someone who only lies. He doesn't have the energy or the ability to shut him down, hold him accountable, and laugh at Trump's responses. Joe could have held his own against a candidate that actually can discuss policy, but that wasn't the challenge last night, and Joe wasn't prepared or capable of dealing with Donald and his style. That aside, there is no way you could listen to Donald last night. Rob, can you raise it? And come away feeling confident that Trump has the ability to go deeper than his practiced sound bites. He repeated himself often and never directly answered the moderator's questions. There was nothing that would give anyone confidence he could hold his own in any complicated situation or that he could intellectually go toe-to-toe with any world leader or adversary. The fact that he believes this stuff that he's writing, in fact, his non-answers about J6 and election, well, definitely this is going to be bad for you because the immunity that came out, and election acceptance should scare every American about his interest in upholding his oath to the Constitution. That doesn't make Biden's performance any less awful, but he answered the question he was asked. And if the presentation was underwhelming, and we have the last 3 years plus and of his being president without his getting laughed or smirked at, no tell-all or leaks discussing his incompetence, no former advisor or cabinet member saying that they won't vote for him, that gives me the confidence that in the formal duties of the presidency, he can hold his own and do the job. Unfortunately, this election is not about policies. It's about sound bites, social media, and who delivers them better, and algorithms that deliver them to voters. Trump is far better than Biden in sound bites. How does he end this up, by the way? For that reason, I'm open to discussion to replace Biden. I'm also open to the discussion to replace Biden or Harris. It's not like Trump's approval ratings are high. Beyond the loyalty of his core 30%, I think large number of people who currently hold him, support him, would walk away for a better alternative. But if it doesn't change, I'm still voting for Biden, the ethical candidate who unquestionably stands by his oath and puts country over self-interest. Rob, can you pull the CNN clip of what do you call it? They were fact-checking President Biden. This is, again, not Fox, Mr. Cuban. This is CNN fact-checking President Biden, and it's pretty bad. Go for it.
Some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself. In some of them, he said.
So,
and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, but Tom, let me ask you, a Mark Cuban, why do you think he's saying what he's saying? You know, you don't become a billionaire without making good decisions, without, well, maybe he's such a great salesperson that's the reason why he's able to sell as good as he does. Does he actually believe what he's saying, Tom? What do you think?
No, so there's a couple things here. I can't read Mark's mind, but I'll tell you what I see. I see somebody who is a never Trumper and is putting out an argument as a never Trumper. He is absolutely a never Trump. And I think we have to pay close attention that he is in the middle of very delicate, regulatory environment for a drug company that he is pushing, which gets his support dramatically from the left on Medicare and Medicare Part D. So I think he's a never Trumper. He's trying to construct this argument, and he's completely ignoring the feebleness and the capability of Biden and choosing. He's not dumb. He could have found, and he probably knew when he was typing that, at least half of the things that CNN talked about. Do you think that Cuban knew at least half those things that CNN talked about? Do you think he recognized those when he was watching? I think he would. Cuban is a smart guy. He's choosing to say, told nothing but lies, told only lies. And I think this is really disingenuous, and he's trying to use his place on X to kind of move the mob a little bit. I'm frankly pretty disappointed in it.
Adam.
Well, they're changing the way that they're spelling Biden's name now. It's no longer Biden. It's Bidone. Biden. Because he's done, man.
Oh, okay.
There you go, Tom. Biden. Yeah, there's a little video right there. They're basically flying a flag over there above one of his rallies, calling him Biden. But here's where the Democrats are at right now. They have no good options. You just saw the stats. You just saw the polls. He's still their best guy.
Which is sad as hell. That's
so
sad.
There's only a few names that you need to focus on. Forget about the Pritzkers and the Whitmers and the Bookers and the Jeffries. Those names have zero relevancy. Nobody knows who they are in the national polls. There's only a few names to focus on. Obviously Trump, Biden, Kamala, Newsom, and RFK. Those are the 5 names you need to know for this election.
And wounded
Trump,
warriors.
Biden, Kamala, Newsom, RFK. That's all you need to know. So don't be shocked when you start to see them parade Kamala out as if she's going to be fit for the presidency.
Are you sure? Because they haven't mentioned her at all. She must be flipping out, meaning, have you been hearing about Kamala as the main? All you've been hearing me is
she was
Newsom.
number 2 in the polls. Newsom gets all the hype. Let me tell you something, bro. In the Democratic Party, the way that they're playing identity politics and they're doing DEI, you actually think they're going to put some random white dude who's never held executive office or national office above the black vice president? They don't play that game, bro. Like, the only thing they could do so their base doesn't flip out if they want to do the identity politics thing is Michelle Obama. And I've been saying for 4 years, like, Michelle Obama is not running. She's never ran. She's never, like, it's smoke and mirrors right there. But Kamala Harris is the equivalent of DEI on executive steroids. She's done nothing in her career to warrant being the president of the United States. So, Biden at this point, we saw what happened Thursday night. It couldn't be unseen. And now they're basically saying, this guy that can't finish his sentences, he's going to finish the next 4 years. competency. So there's a lot of people out there saying, listen, I'm not really happy with both choices, but I'd rather have a strong asshole than a weak and ineffective,
idiot,
nice guy.
Yeah.
So, I went back and I watched Biden since 2008, because that's really when we really learned about Biden. He became the vice president for Obama, and he was debating Sarah Palin, and he was this, had his smile and his, Joe Biden thing going on. And then in 2012, he's debating Paul Ryan against Mitt Romney. And then in 2020, Trump. You say what you want to say about Biden. He had it. And, you have it until you don't. And they say in sports, like, you think that you're playing well, you think you got it going okay, and then all of a sudden, the new guy or a guy that still has it just blows by you, and you're like, what the hell just happened? And Trump just blew by this guy. Yeah. And it wasn't even close. So, Biden would say things like, all right, just watch me. Just watch me. Well, we watched you, Joe. And if this is the best you have, this dumb Democratic debacle that you had going on weekend at Biden's, it's pretty happened. So where am I going with this? The Democratic Party, I was reading this article in the Wall Street Journal, and they basically said the Democratic Party deserves Biden, but America doesn't. So they've been sort of gaslighting us for the last couple years. He's still got it, guys. Yeah. Behind closed doors, don't worry about the stumbling, the mumbling. And even as much as 3 months ago in the State of the Union, say what you want, they put him on shots, drugs, steroids. Yeah, they forgot to shoot him up for this election or for this debate. Where was that? It was just so apparent. And now it's like sort of like the emperor has no clothes on. And they're basically like, no, he's still got it. And then you see all the I'm shocked. Like the Democratic Party, Barack Obama, hey, it was a bad debate. We all have those things. Trust me. This wasn't a bad debate, dude. This was a disaster. You got Jim Clyburn, who's like, listen, you get 3 strikes. This is strike 1. Okay, they're just equivocating what's going on. Nancy Pelosi's basically, I'm a huge Biden supporter. He's been a great president. Raphael Warnock saying, absolutely not. Don't displace him. Bernie Sanders saying, hey, it was 90 minutes. Everyone has it. This guy lost in the first 10 seconds. His first sentence, he's like, we watched the debate. We're like, what is happening right now? But here's the reality. I actually think he's still going to be the guy that runs. As crazy as it is, he's still the guy.
But just to go back, Mark Cuban, Pat, you asked why. Either there's a personal vendetta about Trump must have slept with one of his girls back in the day or something, because look at that long ass thing. It should just be, he should write a book called TDS, a story by Mark Cuban, because I've been thinking about it. Regardless of who steps in, all right? You guys all agree, no matter who it is, the policies are not going to change. So everything that's happening right now is going to keep going, no matter what. The border, economy, inflation, it doesn't, remember when Biden talks about they won't let me? Those Pat, aren't going anywhere. And somebody had a crazy idea about how, because we're all confused on, is it Kamala? Are they going to hang on to Joe? And then she steps in. Newsom comes in. She's the president. It's like, somebody else was like, Vinny, what if the deep state does some crazy stuff where they try to either assassinate, like get rid of her or get rid of him, blame it on a MAGA extremist, blame it on a MAGA person, and oh my God, there goes the martyrdom. Nothing's off the table with that. But again, it's the policies. And I want everybody to know this isn't election about Joe Biden or whoever. This election is just not Trump. The left doesn't give a shit. They'll put a robot in there if they had to. It's the policies are going to stay the same.
But you know what it is. But you have to also realize you lose a lot of credibility when you gaslight the obvious. He's gaslighting the obvious. I understand debating an issue. Okay, I have Billy Carson on. And he says what he says about Jesus. Okay, that's your opinion. You're saying what you're saying. Fine, great. You have the religious debate. I totally get it. Pro-life, pro-choice, have the debate. Israel, Palestine, have the debate. Ukraine, Russia, have the debate. But when you say something like that, you're almost telling the American people, I think you really are stupid and you're going to believe me.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what you're saying.
I agree.
And if somebody watches that, you're like, hey, you know how a boy gets to a certain age and they have the feud with their mom or their dad? And it's normally the mom, because mom tries to use certain tactics and fears to be able to control, because dad doesn't need to use tactics. Dad's tactic is one thing.
Pow, pow.
Pow, pow, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So mom has to use certain fear, like
Tactics.
something. Yeah. And then you're like, Mom, listen, it's done.
Yeah.
You can't use this anymore. I'm not a child. Voters are watching Mark Cuban saying, Mark, we get you're successful, but we now really fully get why you sold your company that, months after you sold it, they parked the business because it was so bad. You're a great salesperson.
Big time.
That's what you're very good at. Well, guess what? Good for you. It's great to be a great salesperson. You can make a lot of money. Doesn't mean you're right. And, I think it's a credibility issue when you say stuff like this. Normally, when you're like, okay, something happens. If I ask you right now, a major trade happened, Lakers traded LeBron James for, let's just say, whatever, Joel Embiid. And then who's the first person you want to go to give their thoughts on that trade? There is a person. I wonder what Stephen A. said about this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. What's it called? Elon Musk has decided, let's just say, to step aside from the Tesla board, and he is no longer going to be having any influence over Tesla. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to go hear what they have to say? Certain business influencers, or what paper are you going to go to? Wall Street Journal, right?
For sure.
Hey, in the political realm, something happened. Who do you want to go to hear what they said? Man, when you do this, everyone's like, let me actually see what freaking nonsense bullshit this guy's going to sell me this time. I'm thinking I'm done. Yeah. So I think that's what's going on here with this guy. It's so much filled with envy, unfortunately, because I, again, think this ability that he has to gaslight, kind of like Newsom does, these are all great qualities on the left to be a president. These are all great qualities on the left to be a great candidate, because if this guy runs 2028, they would be behind him like you wouldn't believe.
Sure.
Cuban.
He would be and by the way, how old is he going to be in 4 years? Cuban. How old is he? Is he 62 right now? How old is he right now? 61, 62? What's Mark Cuban's age, right? 65.
He's
Good for you.
already.
So in 4 years, he's 69. By the way, a 69-year-old today is like a 20-year-old, because with the presidents that we got running. So he'd be a young man.
Can I give you the perfect example of gaslighting? Like, if you're like, what's this gaslighting? Because I think it was the word of the year.
I hate that
in
word.
2023. Let me show you
it.
what gaslighting looks like. And none other than Gavin Newsom. When he was on the, right after the debate, they asked him, they said, all right, what do you think on what's going on? He goes, what? Biden stepped down? His presidency's been a masterclass. Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
What are you saying right now?
Yeah.
So you're saying that Joe Biden isn't the greatest president of all time? I'm like, is this guy?
Well, that's gaslighting.
And you actually did a reaction video to this where you're like, this guy's the best actor we've ever seen.
He's amazing.
Like, it's incredible. Forget about Matt Damon. Forget about Leo. Here's what's going on there. But Vinny, you said something that's actually apropos, especially with Mark Cuban.
Hold on, that's a huge word. I need you to break that down.
Yeah, just correct.
Thank you. Yes.
The Democratic Party is more focused on beating Trump than strengthening America.
Thank you.
Because it was sort of your clincher, your coup de grace that you said the other night. You said, what's she thinking after this debate? What's Putin thinking after this debate? What are the mullahs thinking after this debate in Iran? They got 3 months to basically come get what they want. So it's a scary time in America right now. But it's the Democratic Party is you made this possible. Joe Biden was supposed to be a one-term president. We all know that. He was a stopgap, that he was a nice guy, he was a comfortable face, he was a placeholder to beat Trump, who was a weak candidate in 2020, especially after COVID. And, they say that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Once he's in there, and Jill Biden's got that, nice little cozy seat in the Oval Office with Joe Biden, they're claiming that she's doing elder abuse. They're like, Joe, you got this. Run again. Oh, don't let him out. Hunter Biden, I guess, is Hunter, advising him.
You nailed it, Hunter.
So,
yeah.
This should have been, for his legacy's purposes, he should have, a year ago said, guys, my job was to beat Trump. I did it. Thanks, everybody. I am, passing the baton to Gavin, to Michelle, to Kamala, whoever it is. But he stayed in there,
let's move on.
and this is what's happening.
Play that Van Jones clip, Rob. You had a Van Jones clip, if you can just play it. You just had it up, Rob. Is that okay? Go for it.
Joe Biden did a great job today, and that was a relief for a lot of people. But it's hard to unsee yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to imagine the guy you saw yesterday making it 4.5 more years. And so you do have to acknowledge there is a high likelihood that a Joe Biden victory ultimately means Kamala Harris will be president. So people need to make a decision. Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel good about that? The Kamala Harris you've seen for the past 2 months, I think any Democrat would feel great about.
Oh, what?
You are 100% correct. When it comes to women's right to choose, which is an issue that really the Democrats needed a champion on, she became that champion. She's done a good job. The problem is it's coming a little late. And so sometimes the public's opinion of someone isn't catching up to their performance. So you're going to see now, can public opinion of her catch up to her performance? Her performance now has been great. Public opinion is lagging behind that.
Yeah, I mean,
Rob, can you do me a favor? Get that tweet that Vinny's talking about Kamala Harris and Elon Musk.
Yeah, and people like, okay, when you hear, and I just want the public, even if you're a Democrat, when you hear something like that, the lying coming out of his mouth, Kamala Harris is doing a great job. Like,
for the left?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing: she hasn't done anything. Like, what has she done?
Well, he said the last 2 months.
The last 2 months, she's the border czar. What has she done?
Because you're not wrong, but what she said, at this point, you're looking at whatever you can to beat Trump, and they're saying the number one issue is Roe v. Wade.
And it's not.
So in that, they're saying Kamala's done a good job with that. Is this the one here? Donald Trump would ban abortion nationwide. President Joe Biden and I will do everything in our power to stop him and restore women's reproductive freedom. Go lower.
And you saw what Elon said at the top?
Go lower.
Yeah, what did Elon? Elon said
he clearly said he would not do so in the debate. Elon said.
Yep.
And then what else is it, Rob? Is that
the community note there was there?
Yeah, above it, because Elon posted lying about the former President Donald Trump's abortion stance. He said, community notes, he basically said, we can't let these people get away with lying, and this is the app that lets them, you can't lie, and you keep trying to lie. He actually tweeted something about that post.
What you have going on with that is, damn it, you took my blankie. Abortion's my blankie. Why did you take that and have some sort of a moderated position that's going to be good? Look, Kamala Harris there's a lot of things happening. Wall Street Journal today, why Kamala Harris would be Biden's likeliest replacement. And getting past all of the gaslighting. They said, fact, donors asked for a phone call and got their conference call and expressed concern about Biden continuing. So not all gaslighting, that's real. That's what happens. Fact, there is ambition and factions behind the scene of unprecedented levels. Everybody that you've seen in there is trying to raise their hand. Gretchen Whitmer actually called the Biden campaign yesterday to say, I wasn't raising my hand, and I'm a little bit frustrated that my name's being thrown around so much while you're trying to clarify your position. She's trying to walk both sides of the path there. But there's ambition and factions going with everybody that wants to be there. And Kamala Harris's own team has been privately livid that the DNC has not been knocking down the rumors and the other names running around. And in the middle of it, they're all gaslighting in plain sight, and they can completely see it. And there are people, fact, DNC strategist says, are we sure we want to leapfrog a woman of color who is currently vice president? So those are all the facts that are out there. These Dems are in right now a hurricane of trouble led by a lot of ambition and factions and realities. As a matter of fact, we had somebody on the podcast that said something about
Roger
Kamala.
Stone said that about Kamala that they won't dump a black woman, period.
Remember.
Yeah, but here's my question, though. Pat, all the money that they've been raising for Biden, how does that work? I heard something where they can't just transfer it to a Newsom or transfer it. It had to be like a gift.
Also the delegates.
Also the delegates, So, by the way, who knows what's up their sleeve? You nailed it. This next, 120 some days? This is going to be insane.
Rob, do me a favor. Go back to that Elon Musk tweet that you had, which is correct. This is what Vinny was talking about. When will politicians, or at least the intern who runs their account, learn that lying on this platform doesn't work anymore?
Brilliant.
Good for you,
Come
Elon.
on, Elon. Let's go.
How many views did it get? 48 million people saw this tweet. Sick.
I love it.
Yeah.
You're a liar.
Sick. Good for you.
Yeah, you're a liar in real time.
Adam.
A couple quick thoughts. Yeah, the biggest strength that the Republicans have right now, and the Democrats clearly don't, is one word, and that's clarity. Trump's the candidate. It's no question. He's revving up his base. There's a lot of independents who, the movable middle that are like, yeah, they saw that. They can't be unseen what happened there. And there's a lot of sort of conservative Democrats who are like, yeah, I can't do what Biden did. And the other competitive advantage that the Democrats had, at least over the last 4 to 8 years, was the perceived moral high ground. The famous Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. But that all got exposed. That they basically just been lying, gaslighting, trolling, they're calling it misinformation and disinformation and deep fakes. We saw what happened in that debate, and it can't be unseen.
Yeah, but don't forget, though, Pat, think about what's her name, who was just on Vogue, Jill. Good old Jill Biden. She's on Vogue. She's a model now. She's in her husband's ear. She's an obstacle. She wants to stay in the White House, bro. She's the most important. She's the first lady. She wants him to stay. And Hunter Biden is begging his father. He begged his dad to stay in the race because if he's out, that piece of crap is going to prison. Period. I want Donald Trump has to go after him. That's on the top of the list. Top 5. Period.
Yeah, Rob, can you? Well, first of all, she's
ridiculous.
Well, a guy. Can you go to CNN's YouTube channel, Rob? Did you watch Jake Tapper, who had one of close? Go to CNN. Go there. Okay, and go a little lower. Right there. Second video. That one right there. Click on that. So who is he talking to here? What's his name? I can't see the title, Rob. Tapper presses Biden's campaign co-chair. Press skip. Okay, so this is Chris Coon.
Yeah, Chris Coon's the senator from Delaware.
Yeah, so do me a favor. So he questions him at the beginning. Press play.
Night. And I think that was a weak debate performance. And I expect folks in the media, the guy doing unscall, of course, the last few as president.
Jake is not having it.
In North Carolina, he wouldn't be running.
Go halfway, Rob. Go halfway. He talks about
out of the race. Quote, we'd switch to candidates who would, according to polls, be less likely to win than Joe Biden, the only person ever to defeat Donald Trump, unquote. Yeah. Then the email goes on to show polling from, to be honest, partisan pollsters that shows Vice President Harris, Governor Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, and how they match up. Now, to be frank, they're only 1 percentage point behind Joe Biden in those head-to-head matchups with Donald Trump. So it does not actually look as though there would be that much of a difference between the guy who has been president for 3+ years and has been spending tens, hundreds of millions of dollars running as a Democratic nominee and the people who haven't even been running.
What are you saying, Jake?
What's your question, Jake?
Yeah.
How does that make your point? If you have Newsom, Buttigieg, and Harris are only 1 point worse than Biden in the head-to-head matchup, how is that like showing some sort of strength of President Biden?
Jake, I may be missing something. You're asking me to explain and defend an email that I didn't author or send out.
Keep fast forwarding. Watch what happens.
How would you reject the notion that there's actually anything going on beyond just a bad night or a bad moment here or there? Let me just ask you, do you truly think that President Biden is the strongest candidate to take on Donald Trump in November?
Look how he answers it.
I think Joe Biden, 2 things, is the strongest, most accomplished president we've had in my lifetime.
In his
that he's been counted out over and over. And
that guy's 60
can go to
plus
the
years
state
old
and say, here's my record. In my speech at the inauguration, said I would bring conscription drug, and I would Trump, and he's
go until Jake asks questions. Yeah,
and he's got investments in manufacturing going.
That's coming up.
He is not to run up.
I mean, he has given fewer press conferences, fewer interviews than any president in modern history, including the previous one, who's now running for re-election.
Here.
Mm-hmm. And this could all be.
The previous one told more lies per sentence than any candidate has ever told on a debate stage.
This is not the discussion that we're having. We could certainly, have that conversation. I certainly didn't particularly care for it when President Biden said no U.S. service members had been killed in the previous 4 years. But moving on from things that were said that were not true, I think it is easy to settle this right now by President Biden going to the Brady Press Center, the press file in the White House.
Watch this.
And doing a 2-hour press conference.
Can he do it?
Everybody would cover it live.
And look what he
networks
says.
Probably would cover it live.
He says he'd
be able to answer all these questions. It's not a crazy thing to expect a president to do. And the fact is, you know that. The campaign knows that. The White House knows that. That's how you settle this. You just put him in front of reporters, and he handles himself with acuity, aplomb. We all see it was just a fluke. Oh, my God, I can't believe it happened. And we move on.
That's right.
The fact that you haven't done that says quite a bit to me.
Bingo.
Love it.
So
watch, wait.
Jake, what I've just said maybe 3 times in this interview is that is what I am urging and recommending.
Right.
I think that the Biden family had a long scheduled family retreat.
The last part he asks
Camp
about
David,
Jill, because you guys are talking about Jill.
Photograph taken,
you have to hear what he says.
Both this debate and the summer and their plans. And I'm encouraging them to add something like that to the schedule, whether it's a 60 Minutes interview or something at the podium at the White House or a town hall. That's not up to me to decide. I don't know whether
it's going to happen or not. You can pause it. So what he asked him, he says, what is your thoughts on Joe Biden's, a lot of people are saying that this is Joe Biden's fault because Joe Biden needs to have the conversation and He says, look, I've known this family for a long time. When Jill wanted to go be a teacher and she wanted to go back to school multiple times, Joe supported him. When Joe said he wants to be a president, Jill supported him. Okay, which means in this family, Jill doesn't like politics. Quite frankly, Jill doesn't like being the first lady. Jill doesn't like any of this stuff. He didn't say Hunter specifically to Jill, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a part of that one can sit there and say, okay, fine. That's the position you guys are taking. But Jake pressing him to say, why don't you do a 2-hour press conference? Answer a bunch of questions. Now, here's a question. Rob, run a poll. What's the likelihood of President Joe Biden agreeing to do a 2-hour unorganized, meaning the people from press can come and ask any questions for 2 hours.
No teleprompter.
What is the likelihood that the president will agree to do a 2-hour press conference with people asking questions?
0. There's no way.
Exactly.
There's no way.
So there you go.
Yeah, and you know what's basically happening? Like this whole situation reminds me of being a New York Giants fan for football. Okay, when your quarterback is complete shit. You talk amongst your friends and your friends that are also Giants fans. It's horrible. But to the public, you're like, no, you got to stay behind. You're not going to talk shit about my quarterback. Like, we stand in front of our quarterback. But behind closed doors, we're like, Jesus Christ, Daniel Jones, he's horrible. He fumbles his arm. What is he doing? That's exactly what's happening with that party. Because for like people like that Harry Sisson, 21-year-old, talking about he's the best. You're the great. You are lying out of your teeth because you're getting paid for it. That is it. You don't believe what you're saying. There's absolutely no way.
Vinny, now you're pissing me off, dude. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
You won 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning.
I love it.
Relax, buddy.
Against Tom Brady. Against Tom Brady.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
The Dolphins haven't had a good quarterback since Dan Marino.
I got it.
Anyway, I digress. But I have, dude, forget about a 2-hour press conference, Joe Biden. Do a 15-minute press conference. Get up there and answer a couple questions. Do an hour. Do whatever. You have Jill Biden, if you show that video right there, she literally said the following, you did a great job, Joe. You answered all the questions.
She patted him.
That's like saying, hey, on the test that you failed, you answered every question. That makes no sense, bro.
I hate the word.
You failed the test, but you did the Christmas tree and got everything wrong, Joe. We're so proud of you.
I hate the phrase gaslighting, and I hate this word cringe. When people do it, it makes me cringe. This video of her going, and what did Donald Trump do? She turned into a demon for a second.
And look, the reality with Trump lying, does Trump elaborate and say things and sort of hyperbolize everything? Yes. There's 3 words that Trump uses more than anyone. It's the best, it's the worst, and it's the greatest, and it's the most. So it's the best economy ever. It was a good economy.
I was
Joe
happy.
Biden's the worst president ever. He's pretty bad president. So the lying just has a little gray in it right there. But the thing with Joe, you asked, I wanted 3 questions to ask you guys. Number 1, do you think he's actually going to do a press conference? Let's see what the poll says.
Nope.
Number 2, do you think Trump will actually agree to another debate with Biden? Because the debate is not scheduled till September 10th. Why the hell would Trump give him another chance to redeem himself?
To dig himself
He's like, he already failed the test. You think I'm going to give him another one? And Trump, he's not afraid to be like, I'm not debating. Like you saw what he just did in the Republican primary. He's not going to do this. And then here's the last one, guys. Did CNN gain or lose a little bit of credibility after the debate? I would argue they actually gained a little bit of credibility, especially Jake Tapper.
Well, remember I said this a year ago. CNN is praying to God that Donald Trump wins. So no, I'm dead serious, Tom. So they'll be relevant. Pat, they'll have something to talk about. Guys, nothing is going on. Their numbers are showing it. Trump wins. That's why the Jake Tappers and everybody, they're kind of leaning like they want Trump because then they could start another 4 years of Hitler. There'll be another pandemic 2. Will Bill Gates?
It's ratings by whatever
it's
name.
It's all ratings, bro. You don't want another one. Like this guy, it's over, man. It's over, Adam. He's not going to debate. Trump should 100% let him debate again. There's no teleprompter. Let him go out there and dig his own freaking grave, and let's move the hell on from this horrible guy.
A famous poet once said, "You need people like me, so you can point your fingers and say,
exactly,
that's the bad guy.
That's the bad guy, right? You need it. CNN needs
a bad guy.
You know."
PBD,
Adam, Tom's trying to say something. Go ahead,
No,
Tom.
I was going to say, Jake Tapper, I mean, you're looking at a man in pain, right? That guy, he was just, did you see him? He was just viscerally in professional pain. Yeah. I'm not picking on him. I'm saying, I think
you're picking on him, but
it sucks. It sucks when CNN, look, he can't win. Tapper comes out and they maintain a certain level of balanced neutrality. I agree with Adam that in trying to conduct the debate. And then the left came after him. Why didn't you attack? Why didn't you restate truths for Donald Trump? Why didn't you go after him? The left was all over it, saying that CNN did a bad job. Now, CNN is looking like the guy that said, listen, you know, all I said was I was going to vouch for you. All I said was I was going to help you. How the hell I'd end up in the principal's office to get suspended as well? You're looking at CNN, a declining network, in a moment of abject pain because there was no way for them to win. And you take a look at it. History repeats itself. The media was behind LBJ until they discovered how many lies LBJ had told about Vietnam. And Walter Cronkite went on national TV and made a comment about the truth about Vietnam and what was going on. And LBJ told his advisors, if I've lost Cronkite, I've lost middle America. Shit. Because everybody trusted the news. Well, you know, CNN was going along with the charade, trying to help, trying to get it there, and now they're the ones who kind of egg on their face, and even the liberals don't like them because they didn't attack Trump during the debate.
Maybe Rob can find it, Pat. There's a video of Dana Bash. Did you see the video? The camera hits her, and she's looking at Biden, and she's like, don't look at me, you idiot. Look at freaking Trump. Is it Dana Bash? Look at this. Dana Bash is like, look over there, you idiot. Look, don't look at me. Look over.
Go away, please.
Because, you know, and that's the moment where Joe Biden was like, he didn't know where to look, Tom.
Remember the reporter in Miami? What was her name? The reporter was in Miami. The debate that we went down when Vivek Ramaswamy went right after her.
Kristen Welker.
Kristen Welker. She had no idea what to do.
She was sitting there
just smiled.
like she had just sat on ice and is just freezing, looking forward, begging a producer to say something in her ear.
If you want to just use the Democratic analogy to Walter Cronkite today, you would argue that maybe Bill Maher probably has maybe the most credibility, or maybe a Jon Stewart as far as the left goes.
I don't know.
Even Bill Maher is basically saying, quote unquote, Biden is going to lose. It's so apparent. Biden shit the bed at the debate. His new Secret Service name is Amber Heard.
Yeah, he definitely
when you have TDS, Bill Maher, who's obviously not a fan of Trump, basically saying like, dude, what is happening right now?
But he loves Newsom.
You've lost.
Oh, what do you mean? He loves Newsom. He loves
Rob,
him.
is this which clip is this?
This is the Amber Heard clip.
Let's see what he says here.
Go ahead.
Trailing off. I've seen beauty pageant contestants answer questions better.
He's talking about the South Carolina girl.
I love how
She's the best.
Yeah, she is. I love how he look at that audience.
With, you know, we need education in the Middle East.
This new Secret Service name is Amber Heard. Come on. This guy is bad.
By the way, that audience is just all liberal.
PBD, let me ask you. You said there was the you'd be in jail moment of the debate. Yeah. What was that?
He said, honestly, I have no idea what he's saying. I don't think even he knows what he's saying.
that was it.
No, by the way, when the debate started and the first time they asked him the question, and in the 10 seconds, I said, it's over.
I saw your, I was seeing you, by the way, because I was watching the debate on the stage and then watching you look like you were in pain.
No, this whole time. This was, first of all, a part of me, I'm always looking for a good fight. Okay, I'm always wanting a good fight. Like this NBA Finals, horrible. It sucked. There was no fight at all. It was terrible, right? You want a good fight. You want to see what's going to be happening. There was zero fight, but once I saw the way he was behaving, I'm like, yeah, this is bad news for the guy.
Quick point. By the way, credit to Trump, good or bad, Trump could have been way worse to Biden. Like the fact that he was like, the worst thing he said was, I don't even know what he said. I don't even think he know what he said. He could have been like, he could have stopped the debate and been like, what the hell's going on with this guy right now? This guy is completely short-circuiting right now. America, stop. Take a look at this vegetable. He could have completely done that to Biden, but he didn't. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
I think that's a great thing.
You think so?
Are you kidding me? Because what he showed was, grace. You know, he showed that he has it inside of him, that he's got grace, and there's a different part of it. Don't get it twisted. He's a brutal competitor, and he has no sympathy for his competitor. If it's between him losing and you losing, trust me, he's interested in you losing, right? But at the same time, he showed grace, and if a part of the strategy was to not seem too aggressive against him, I think he showed it. Nice. It was a W for him. All right, so let's go to the next story here. Rob, what's the Jamie Foxx clip? Do you have the Jamie Foxx clip? There's this video with Jamie Foxx that he talks about what happened to him, and then he says what he says. Rob, play the clip.
April 11th last year, bad headache. Asked my boy for an Advil. I was gone for 20 days. I don't remember anything. So they told me, I'm in Atlanta, they told me, my sister and my daughter took me to the first doctor. Next doctor said, something going on up there. I won't say it on camera. I won't say it on camera. I don't want to say it on camera.
What do you think it is, Tom? So if he says something going on up there, but I won't say it on camera, what are the possibilities of what that could be?
Medical experts and other people at the time it happened, I believe what I read from them, they said, he is on the side where you can't come out and say, oh, the vaccine caused something for me or something related to the vaccine. You can't do that. They'll say, you don't know that. But he had a stroke, and he had a stroke that came from a blood clot in his heart. I believe that is exactly what happened. Remember how quiet they were? Jamie's not in a good place. They were giving him blood thinners. They were lowering his body temperature. All of that is facts. Why do you give blood temperature? Why are you lowering the body temperature? Why are you doing things like that? I mean, not to room temperature, but bringing it down. Why was there such concern about this? Because what myocarditis is a clotting disorder. He had a clot. It went to his brain. He had a minor stroke, and the doctors work heroically, and he's still with us. And he is not going to say something's going on up there. What could be going on up there?
Yeah, he's not mentally.
What, dementia or a stroke? And so he's not going to come out and say, just like the NFL isn't going to come out and say that the player collapsed because he had a clot episode, and he just dropped like he was shot. I think that's what happened, and I think it was vaccine related. That's my opinion. But nobody on that side, nobody in media can come out and say that. That's not the talking point of the left.
It's pretty sad, though, isn't it, PBD? Like, if that's the case, and you had a blood clot. And by the way, I love Jamie Foxx. He even commented on my on the video, that one of the videos that we shot on Instagram. He's like, dude, you're crazy, or something like that. But amazing guy. But like something like that, when you say that you can't say anything on camera, aren't you kind of like, I think, Tom, be more informative to let other people know, like, hey, listen, if you're thinking about getting this thing, think twice, because even at that age, because the myocarditis, Tom, hits the majority is younger boys, correct?
Correct. And who leaked stroke? Somebody saw, was that Tyson that leaked and used the word stroke?
Somebody said
at
the word.
At the time that he was in that?
Yeah. But regardless, Tom, if you're gone for 20 days, Pat, 20 days, you don't remember anything. I think they said, he even said it, a cortisone shot or something, and then he just came up. It's like, if that's the case, I don't think secrecy in that situation is going to be beneficial for anybody else, because I'd want to know, like, this guy is in great shape. Jamie Foxx is a freaking athlete, quarterback. The guy's always in shape. For that to get him at that age, that's not a good sign, man. I think you got to let the people know.
Rob, is this when Tyson was on the pod?
Correct, and that's when he said, here, I'll play it.
Mike, are you following what's going on with Jamie Foxx?
He's not feeling well.
Something's going on with...
Yeah, they said stroke. I have no idea what happened to him.
Yeah. So... again, with a story like this, to me, what's Jamie Foxx's net worth? Rob, type in Jamie Foxx.
Could I guess?
Net worth.
$200 million.
Okay, let's see what it is. $170 million. Okay, so Jamie Foxx has FU money. Okay, so he doesn't have to worry. Now, again, that's the internet. Assuming he has $170 million, he gives me the vibes of somebody that's not an overspender. Remember that one story he told? He says, look, Diddy used to put these parties together with $1 million. And he says, I'm going to put $1 million party. I'm like, Diddy, I'm going to do a party with $45. And it's going to be a better party than yours. Yeah. You ever heard him tell the story? Well, I got some chicken wings. We went to KFC. I got some punch. I got some cheap alcohol. Yeah. And guess what? Lady showed up. It was the sickest party I ever put together with $45, right? So part of me gives me the vibes that he's frugal and he's cheap. Good for him, okay, if that's the case. If he's got money... The other side is for a creative. You mean to tell me I can no longer play in the playground of an artist? Man, if that's like me not having any oxygen. I'm an artist. I will no longer be invited to this and to that and to this, and I won't be in that movie and to this and this. Yeah, there's no way I can. It is not worth me talking about what happened here. The only other reason you do it is because you're at a point where you really don't give a shit because you're like, everybody has to know. And it doesn't sound like he's there right now.
He still gives a shit.
He still gives a shit.
Of course, he's still in the game
because they see what happens to people like Gina Carano and Kevin Sorbo. When you're out and your career is canceled, you're out.
And I don't even know he's a Kevin Sorbo or a Gina Carano. I don't think that's Jamie. I think it would be more like dude, what the hell was this that we put in our bodies? If that's the case, and if that's what the doctors told him was the issue. If that's the case, what's the likelihood, if that is the case, that his manager said, look, you say it, I can't get you another job? What's the likelihood his managers and his agent told him that?
75%.
Yeah, his style wouldn't. I'm sorry, and you're right. I misspoke there. I'm not saying Jamie Foxx's style would be Gina Carano or Kevin Sorbo. It's not, but he would end up with the same manager they have. I can't get any calls for you, man.
Yeah, I can't get any calls for you.
I would say 80%, Pat. 80% of that, it's happened.
So that's where he's at. Adam.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something about Jamie Foxx. Is there a more likable, good-hearted, just down-to-earth movie star? I would argue that Jamie Foxx, I mean, what's the Q score?
Oh, he's up.
Does anybody hate Jamie Foxx?
Nope.
I mean, there's people out there that don't like Tom Cruise, that don't like Will Smith, that don't like The Rock even. Jamie Foxx, forget about it. This guy's one of the most likable, nicest, good-hearted guys.
People on the planet.
Speak about talented. Pat, you always talk about a triple threat. This guy, singing, comedy, acting, this dude does it all. Athlete. And here's what I can guarantee you. I don't know what happened with his medical condition, but when he had his headache and he said that he took an Advil, I'm willing to bet it wasn't the Advil that caused any of these health issues.
No, not at all.
So I've been watching Jamie. When I used to do stand-up comedy, I know you did, what was you were on the...
I did a show with him. Affion Crockett. He produced a show with Affion Crockett. I forgot the name, but I was one of the actors on
Def Comedy Jam. You did Def Comedy Jam. I remember watching Jamie Foxx in the Def Comedy Jam. Dude, I remember watching Jamie Foxx on In Living Color, and then the Jamie Foxx show, and then it was Any Given Sunday, and then all of a sudden, boom, Ali, Ray, Django Unchained, Another Given Sunday. Dude, just talented, likable. By the way, I've hung out with him in Miami too many times to mention. Nice, sweet, likable. I'm just more than anything happy that he's feeling all right.
And by the way, I'm not even in the camp of this anybody not like him because Cat Williams said some stuff about him. I think there was something with him and Denzel and a few other guys, Gerard Butler and him. Anyways, a couple stories with the two of them. We invited Jamie to be at one of our events, and we almost were able to get it done. Last date complications didn't happen during COVID because he says his sisters didn't feel something about not comfortable with him coming because of COVID. Anyways, it's not even about, you're not going to be in a space for that long of a time and have everybody like you and you don't create enemies, especially in a creative environment where you're taking somebody else's job. There's going to be moments where something happens. But this position here, if you telling other people could potentially save other people's lives, why wouldn't you want to tell other people?
Exactly.
It's a question. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to say something to see how other people are going to be processing that for themselves? Anyways, Rob, San Francisco. Folks, I don't know if you've seen these videos. We ain't showing them. But in San Francisco, there was this thing going on called the Pride Month, which, as if one day isn't enough, they needed an entire month, another 140 days for the year to just kind of celebrate all the stuff that they're doing. And you see in the streets, I don't even want to tell you what was happening between two men in the middle of the street. One guy was laying in a pool asking other men to use your imagination on what it is. But watch what happened, Vinny, when this guy's asking the cops what the laws in San Francisco, if it's legal to do this or not. Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, so basically, Peter, I don't know the guy's name, but there's a few of them going around here with cameras. These are cops in San Francisco. They confirm that full nudity is allowed and legal in front of children, in front of kids, at Pride events because it's not for sexual gratification. And what you were talking about, Pat, had to do with guys out in public, naked, doing these acts, urinating and doing all this crazy stuff. And this is them. And pay attention, what community do you think these cops are in? Go ahead and play it, Rob.
One question for you guys. I'm a news reporter, so obviously there's a lot of nudity around here, men, women, transsexual stuff going on, and there's kids, wandering around the event. I'm not sure on San Francisco's laws or California's laws, is it legal for nudity to be presented in front of kids?
Nudity is legal, yeah, within certain boundaries.
But then, what are the boundaries? Do you know?
Coupled with a lewd act. Yeah, anything coupled with a lewd act or anything being done for sexual gratification that involves other people.
Okay, but this event wouldn't be considered for sexual gratification.
No, if they're walking around and it's out, that's right. That'd be different than if they're masturbating or if they're forcing, flashing people, right? Like trying to get their attention and flashing. But no,
but even with kids, it's fine to be nude as long as there's no masturbation or anything like that.
Unbelievable.
One question for you
And by the
guys.
way, like you said, guys, we cannot show the videos, even like libs of TikTok and Gays Against Groomers. They had to blur out the majority of this stuff. But explain to me. Nobody can still explain to me. You're proud about being gay. Congratulations. I think pride, and it's a whole different conversation. What does that have to do with you butt naked? But let's put the kids to the side. You're naked and doing crazy shit like that in the middle of the street. How is that normal? What is that doing to further? Like, gay people have made so many strides, Pat, to get to this point. What the hell are we talking about here? Like,
So yesterday I had this guy on the podcast. There's 5 interviews that haven't come out. By the way, I did a 2-hour interview with Mark Epstein. And we'll go into the Epstein story here in a minute. I'll tell you one thing he told me, a private phone call he had with Jeffrey Epstein. But one of the guests I interviewed yesterday was Neil Howe. Neil Howe wrote the book, The Fourth Turning. Tom, did you ever read The Fourth Turning?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's about, how every society goes through these 4 turning point that they go through. One is the high, and then you got, I think it's like the unraveling or the awakening, and then it's the crisis, okay? And they made, in 1997, when he wrote this book with his partner, William Strauss, they predicted 5 events that were going to happen, okay? One of the events was a massive financial crisis. Check, it happened. Wow. Second event they predicted was a massive pandemic. Check, it happened. Third event they predicted, Rob, was Russia would invade one of the Soviet Union neighboring countries.
This is from 1997 he did this?
This is from 1997.
So rebuild Humpty Dumpty.
Yes, to rebuild Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty. Number 3. The fourth one that they talked about had to do something with the Tea Party. All 4 happened. The 5th one hasn't happened.
What's that?
And I said, so what's the 5th one? He says, every single time when you get to the 4th turning where crisis is here, where you see stuff and behavior that just doesn't make any sense, the only way massive change happens is through war. And I said, what kind of war? He says, well, America is showing all signs of a civil war. And I said, civil war? He says, yeah. He says, have you heard of Barbara F. Walter? I said, no, I know Barbara Walters. I thought it was his daughter, but it's not. It's her daughter, but it's not. Barbara F. Walter wrote a book. Rob, if you can pull up this book, Barbara F. Walter. The book is called The Next Something, Rob. Something. If you just go to Amazon, right there. How Civil Wars Start. She goes to all of these countries around the world and interviews people who went through civil war and asks them a question about how it happened. Every single person from different countries who did not know each other, you know what was the first answer everybody gave? None of us saw it coming before it came, okay? So I'm like, okay, so fine. I said, so let me ask you this question. You know, what part of these 4 turnings? He says, because this turning is what leads to kids becoming artists. This turning is what, gave us birth to Walt Whitman and the feminist movement. And he's kind of talking about all these things, right? I said, what part of the turning is with what they're doing in San Francisco right now, where men are walking around pleasing each other in public and absolute nudity with kids being around? Is any of these turnings have to do where values and principles is completely lost? Meaning morals is completely out the window. You're not even thinking about it. He said, yes, that plays a very important role. I said, so how does that common sense come back? He says, it only happens. All the 4 turnings that we've studied, every single one of them ends with a war. I said, are you saying this one's ending with a war? He says, I didn't say that. He says, all I'm saying to you is the previous ones that we've studied, they all end with a war. And if this one is given signs that it could be a civil war, I said, what do you mean by civil war? He says, look, when I was a kid, in our community, what's different about today is the fact that in our community, we had relatives that voted for Nixon. We had relatives that voted for John F. Kennedy. It was very simple. Nobody was like, oh, there's voter fraud, because there was everybody in our community. He says what's happened in America today is those who are conservatives are all living next to each other, and those who are liberals are all living next to each other. So whatever that happens, they can't believe that happened because everybody around them is what? Like them.
Exactly.
That was not the case in the 60s and the 70s. Again, he's saying this, right? I said, so where are you going with this? He says, these are all signs of civil war. These are all signs of civil war. I said, okay. He said, so what you mean to tell me some states may succeed and just kind of be like, we're going to be our own country and et cetera, et cetera? He says, well, it could happen. It wouldn't be that easy. It could happen. I said, okay. How high is the temperature right now? Because he said the 4 turning, Rob, is going to go till when? 2028 to early 2030s.
Correct.
2028 to early 2030s. They go in 20-year increments. Okay, 46 to 64, 64 to 84, 84 to 08, and now 08 to 2028. That's what he's saying, maybe early 30s. I said, how high is the temperature right now compared to what it's going to be if a war comes? He said, we're probably at a 5 or 6 right now.
Oh, wow. So we're low.
So we're probably at a 5 or 6 right now.
Right in the middle.
That's exactly what he's saying. Meaning, everything leans towards one of 2 things. He says, look, eventually when a 4 turning happen, everybody has a one man that leads it that everybody follows. A leader shows up that he says, this is how we're going to do things moving forward. And it's the restructuring of everything. I said, restructuring everything? He says, yeah, the restructuring everything. I said, such as what? He says, everything gets restructured. He says, during the Great Depression, guess what? A guy came in and says, here's how we're going to do this moving forward. Everything changed, right? He introduced what? Welfare, all this social, everything.
The New Deal.
The New Deal, all this stuff, right? It was because they're like, oh my God, we're open to it. It's war. Let's change. Great Depression. Boom. Massive World War II, World War I. So I don't know, man. All I'm saying to you is some of the stuff that we're seeing that is happening, to me, makes 0 sense. When we were in California 4 weeks ago and we're seeing some of this stuff, it makes 0 sense why that's beneficial to any society. 0. So either we're going to be so far off that everybody's going to have their own set of countries you're going to move to, where Florida becomes a country, Texas becomes a country, or you have to go through some shitty times until we all line up and say, you know what, we went a little too far with this LGBTQ stuff. We'll stop. We went a little too far with this. But that was kind of what he was talking about.
And I'm happy that you say like that, because I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm living in a different realm, especially when they have the kids, doing it in front of the kids and the parents that bring them. And then I realize, PBD, these people cannot reproduce. If you're in that LGBTQAI plus whatever, you're not reproducing. So you know how they do it? They recruit your kids. That's how they multiply. They grab your kids. The kids that are there, remember the last week we showed that trans stripper boobs? That kid was looking at, that kid is going to be traumatized for the rest of its life. And that's how they reproduce, because that's how they grab these kids. They grab them young and like, hey, it's okay.
So it's very interesting. The city that we stayed in is Graz, Australia, second largest city in Austria. Second largest city in Austria behind Vienna. Graz is also where Arnold is from. Right. And so what was very interesting is we didn't see homeless there. And nothing was perfect, but it was much cleaner. Wasn't a lot of homeless. And I asked a couple people what their perspectives on, and they had heard a little bit about the debate coming by Sunday morning. But here was the unified statement. They all were right down the middle with this. It says, a strong, and the other word that was used is organized. A strong or an organized America is good for all of us. And when they said us, they mean common Europe. Because when they say us, they've been living as us since EU, the European Union, was established. So they talk us a lot. Oh, I live here, but when I say us, I mean EU. We have economy, we have everything. And he says, a strong America is good. I said, what do you think is right now? I said, we think you're crazy.
Yeah.
He says, how did this happen? You only have Biden, you only have Trump? Because remember, they've got multiple parties and they make coalition governments and things. So they have two views. Number one, a strong and an organized America is good for them, and they're waiting for that. And number two, right now, how can you only have these two choices? Look at us. We have all these choices, and we got a 28-year-old guy coming out of the far right in France.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But they were very complimentary. They were sweet.
Well, give them our best, Tom, next time you see them.
No, what I'm saying is they were not aggressive. They were actually balanced.
Yeah, that's great. Adam.
Yeah. Well, let me address where America stands on the world stage. There was just a recent report. My guy Fareed Zakaria, my guy, I watch him every Sunday on CNN. He did this global leadership report, and it basically sort of broke down how the world views America, not just by itself, but against other world leaders. And it was America versus China was the prime example. They polled, I think, 25 different countries all around the world for U.S. approval ratings versus China approval ratings. By the way, what do you think the results look like around the world? Favorability of the United States of America around the world, 60%. Favorability of China around the world, 28%. So we're more than double what China stands for in the world. So, they're talking about by 2025, that China 2025 taking over the world. The world ain't buying it. So, this is why I always say that, America has to basically grapple between being an interventionalist or an isolationist. If we lose our place on the world stage and we retreat from global leadership, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, they're going to fill that void. So I'm definitely not a fan of just countless, endless world wars or funding wars for trillions of dollars, but just vacating our position of the number one country in the world for leadership, I think would be a poor decision. With that being said, the world prefers America's Western liberal democratic values over any of these authoritarian dictators. But what's interesting? There was one more stat here, and they said the reputation of America's good for global influence. Like, is America good or bad for the world? You know what country? They had all these countries: South Africa, Poland, Peru, South Korea, Sweden, Brazil, Great Britain, Malaysia, Australia, Germany, Canada, Turkey, France, Italy, Spain, Argentina, the list goes on. Do you know that every single one of those countries had a better perception than worse perception of America? Do you know the only country that had a worse perception of America? You know what it was? America itself.
We think that we suck.
Americans have been ingrained for the last 10 years that we suck. I can even show you this stat.
Yeah. When you're carrying a flag and your autistic kid gets punched in the face, I mean, of course people hate America because they're brainwashed and they're taught to hate this freaking country. And no wonder why this fourth turning is going to happen, because we're all freaking separated and divided. We hate
those
everything.
people don't live here and see us fighting on our front lawns.
Exactly.
Yeah. What they see is what is around the world, and they see what's in their front lawn. And as a comparative thing, what Adam is pointing out, the numbers show that they think highly of us.
Well, exactly. You always say that words talk, numbers scream. I'm getting that right. The world is looking at America and they're like, guys, you're still number one. Like, let's get it together. And then internally, we're like, yeah, we suck. We're the worst. Gen Z now believes in socialism over capitalism. They think that, Gen Z, the children are our future. They have a negative perception of America. So I think what we need to sort of recognize is, as bad as we think it is, as disconnected as we think we are.
What's orange, what's blue, 2019, 2024,
Yes.
and then on the left, it's U.S., how we looked at each other versus today?
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
that means we look at ourselves less than we did five years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
That makes sense to me because that's what Biden's done.
Yeah,
good point.
No, but the point is, I actually agree that Americans look at themselves as a country in a weaker way than we did 5 years ago. Yes, this is a correct assumption of how we view ourselves in the last 5 years, if that's his take. Because what's happened in the last 5 years? Who was president in 2019? What was going on in 2019? ISIS disappeared. Economy was good. We're doing great. People are making money. America was proud to be American. We were like, hey, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Today, a lot has changed in the last 5 years.
Right.
So that's a massive drop-off. What's the number from, Rob? Is it from 50 to 30? Or from 50 to 35, 5, 10, 35, 50 to 34, yeah.
So, yeah,
Japan
exactly.
hates us. Japan hates us.
No, but ultimately what these numbers show is that the world has a very good opinion of the United States. Despite all the differences that we have, internally is where we're hemorrhaging. So, I actually sent you some headlines from around the world. U.S. extends its lead over China in the race for the world's biggest economy, Bloomberg. A surge in wealth has boosted the most U.S. households since 2020, and it helps sustain economic growth. AP, Axios, U.S. winning the world economic war. So his ultimate take is that we should actually have more confidence in our country that we do. What's my point? We started this segment off about having a civil war. What the hell are we talking about? What does that even look like? There's no longer North and South. So even the reddest of states, 2/3 of people in the reddest states are conservative and 1/3 are liberals. In the bluest states, whether it's Massachusetts, whether it's California, whether it's New York, 2/3 are more liberal, 1/3 are more conservative. So, it seems that state by state we're sort of fractured, but even within states, you have Republicans, Democrats, purple, red, blue. So what would even a civil war even look like? And by the way, I think there's a stat out there that shows that Trump voters, I think 52% say that a secession from the Union or a civil war is more likely, whereas Biden supporters, it's like 42%, still not a good number, anytime we're talking about civil war. But I think it's important to remember the Civil War, which was 1861
by the way, let me
1865,
ask,
1 million Americans died.
Let me
What are
ask
we
you
talking
this.
about?
Let me ask you this here.
Yeah.
Okay, so go with it. Let me ask you this here. Are you planning on having kids?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What is the likelihood that you would be okay living in California, in San Francisco?
What is the likelihood?
What is the likelihood that you as a father with your kids, say, something tells me you're going to have a daughter, okay? So say if God grants you a daughter, gifts you a daughter, what's the likelihood? Your wife says, no, babe, let's move to San Francisco, screw all this stuff. And, you marry like AOC's second cousin, okay? Yeah. And you guys have a kid and she wants to leave this place and you guys go to San Francisco. What's the likelihood as the breadwinner of the family, as the moneymaker, you would be okay raising your family in San Francisco?
No, it's not happening. I'm staying in Miami. I'm
but
staying
why not?
in Florida.
But why not? Why not?
I can go down the list of reasons. I'm just not from California. I don't believe in what's going on out there. I do care about taxes. I do care about crime.
Okay.
I do care about cost of living. I do care about homelessness. I do care about not indoctrinating kids. The list goes on and on.
Okay, so
let
me ask you a question. Yeah. How much longer until DeSantis is no longer the governor?
I think his term comes up in 2028.
Can you check, Rob, when DeSantis is done? When is DeSantis' term
2028, I want to say.
Is that what it is?
He got elected in 2022. The governors are six years, right?
Doesn't he term limit in 28?
27? Okay. So 2027. Okay, so that means we got what? 3 more years.
26 election he's out. He term limits at 26 election and then he leaves January 5th.
Okay, guys, just so you know, it's only 2.5 years, okay? So what if in 2027 you got a new governor who's a liberal? And what if all of a sudden, hypothetically, Adam, the LGBTQ stuff becomes extremely aggressive in the state of Florida and kids? And what if he stays for 8 years? And what if his guy becomes a governor and stays for another 8 years in the state of Florida? 16 years, 2 liberal governors, back to back. LGBTQ is on a high rampage here. It's insanity in schools. You're not in it, where you're not hearing what's going on with schools. There was a big Christian school here locally where the senior pastor does an event recognizing LGBTQ. 300 families decided to take their kids out. I think it's either 300 kids or 300 parents collectively got together, and that 150 students there. There was a massive exodus of the school here locally in Fort Lauderdale, massive. And I know that for different reasons. So what do you do then if it's now touching you directly, influencing you and your kids directly in the state of Florida?
You're saying if Florida goes completely from where woke goes to die to complete Wokeville?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think, the famous saying, you vote with your wallet and you vote with your feet. I think that we saw what happened in California. How many people left California in 2020 during COVID?
Massive.
1 million people? They're like,
Massive.
I can't co-sign this. This is not what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. And ultimately, I do believe that there's something called equilibrium. I think we've seen...
No. Stay on this. Don't play politics. I'm asking you a question. Hear me out.
Yeah.
If that happens, and every year you're living here, it's not getting any better. Year after year after year after year after year after, then what do you do?
Well, you move.
Okay, so watch this. The reason why 52% of Republicans and 42% are for it is because many people on the left are at a point where they cannot believe some states don't offer abortion rights, okay? And to them, that's part of their rights and their religion, okay? That has to be in place for them. By the way, I respect if that's something that you want to do. Number two, for them, LGBTQ is a right, needs to be in place. For them, these things are so important that they need to have that they're saying, I'm not going to feel comfortable living in a state like Florida. The point becomes the following. A person like me, I'm willing to bet there is 50 million people who are sitting there saying, nah, man, I think, I'd love to have a state I'm living in that the Constitution says never will we impose LGBTQ in our education and schooling, and it's a law. It'll never, ever happen in the state like it's a constitutional law. We will never do that, okay? Ever. We will never allow puberty blockers ever under the age of 18, ever. It's illegal, and whoever sells it, it's a crime in our state if you choose to sell it. I'm just giving you some of the stuff where I'm going. There are many families where when you look at the left and the right today with values, we are so far off on values. We are so far off in values where it's so hard to have the conversation of what people agree with. Because the 3 or 4 things that matter so much to you in your life, you're so far apart. So what happens, say I bring my kids over to your house, okay? Your wife now believes in certain values that's different from my kids, and she says things like, in front of me, imagine we're out to dinner, and your wife's there, and she says, well, what's wrong? I told my son the other day, if he wants to be gay, there is nothing wrong with that. We teach our kids their options early on. I know who you are. First of all, you're going to lose your shit during dinner, okay? And you're going to say, what did you say to him? I told our son, if he wants to be gay, honey, he can do that, if he wants to do that. But do you know what happens in that moment for me? I can't have my kids be around your kids. Because that to me is a values and principles. That's values and principles that I'm raising my kids with. Not an adult. Later on in life, 16, 17, 18 years old, I'm not. That's a different story. If one of my kids after 18 is like, Dad, this is what I like. You know what, bro? Disappointed? But guess what? You made that decision as an adult. It's not going to happen with me being under 18. I'm going to raise you properly. But it's also not going to be because we're hanging out with Vinny, and Vinny all of a sudden it's like, well, what's wrong if you're this? And what's wrong if you're that? Nah, bro, you ain't going to be around it. Being a parent is very, very hard. Very, very hard. So that's the part, Adam, where for the first time, when the way this guy was explaining it to me, and I'm watching the videos in San Francisco, Pride Month, 30 days, 145 days. You know how far off that is with the values and principles of somebody that's raising a family and even common sense logic? You're like wondering why our birth rate is 1.6. Why do you think our birth rate is 1.6? And we're supposed to sit here and buy this like it's a regular thing? No. So to me, I actually fully understand what he's talking about with the fourth turning, and I actually fully understand why some people are just saying, bro, give me a state with a few million people that we live in, but we have similar values and principles, and just leave us the F alone.
Yep.
and allow me to have certain values for my kids that I don't have to worry about. That's what I want. Now, you know what this also made me think about is the fact that, you know how much the enemy would love all our states to be divided in America, the union to be divided, because that's how China could win if all of a sudden states start succeeding and kind of like, well, Texas is going to be its own thing, Florida's going to be its own thing. And then the conversation led so much that we looked at which states have the most guns and which states, have the strongest military. You know who has the weakest military in America? West Virginia. You know who has the strongest military in America out of all the states? California.
Cali's huge.
Right? And then we looked at which states have the most guns, right? What was number one, Rob? On who had the most guns? Do you remember that yesterday that we went through it?
It was a Midwest state. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, but we went through. We saw Idaho. Montana and Wyoming. Bro. No, Montana. Per capita, Montana was number one. You're right.
Per capita, yeah.
Yeah, per capita. Montana was one. Wyoming was there. And then you kind of going through that list where, we can defend for ourselves. He says, if it comes down to civil war, you're not looking at the military. You're looking at what states has people with guns.
Yep.
You're looking at which people have Second Amendment. You're looking at stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think what's given me a lot of confidence in the fact that won't happen is only one part of our system. That's given me a lot of confidence, and that's Supreme Court. That gives me all the confidence.
Thank
because
God.
The Supreme, if we didn't have the Supreme, if it was six, Sotomayor says, so you mean to tell me somebody can go to a Navy SEAL and says, kill my opponent, that's okay, that's immunity?
What are you
well, first of all, what kind of a judge makes an irresponsible comment like that? What kind of a judge makes an irresponsible comment like that?
A liberal.
Yeah, she's describing something that was not near the same solar system as what the constitutional action we're talking about talks about.
But can I answer your question?
She's just like AOC at that moment, just throwing something out there.
I'm with you. And I guess for me, it's all about sequencing. So what's the sequencing of how do we get to a civil war here? So, all right, you're pissed. You're angry. You're super upset. Now you're completely enraged. Those are all logical emotions that you're going to go through. But how do you get to murderous psychopath, civil war, killing your neighbor? Like, walk me through how you get there and how that even works.
Bro.
The fact that we're even having this conversation. So you're upset, you're angry, whatever.
No.
All right, let's go kill people because they don't have different values as you?
It's not. No. It's called defending your values and principles that you're not willing to compromise.
So you murder your fellow civilians? I'm not saying you're advocating this.
Who's saying?
I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about civil war, it's not a pillow fight. I mean, it's literally you're killing your neighbor. How does that even work? Walk me through how that even works.
Dude,
it's easy to say. I'm not saying you're saying this.
Pull up how many civil wars we've had in the history of mankind. How many civil wars have we had? Okay.
Oh.
In history, how many total civil wars? Is there a number that says how many total civil wars we've had? Actually, would like just to see if it's going to say how many total civil wars. We've had many. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But how many democracies have had civil wars? That's what I'd be more interested in, because in authoritarian dictatorships,
more than 250 have broken out around the world. The number of civil wars have been increasing, almost 50% in 2022. Then in 2001.
In 20 years.
Civil wars are large-scale, sustained, and organized conflicts that often involve regular armed forces. They can result in many casualties and use up a lot of resources. Civil wars since World War II have lasted an average of just over 4 years, which is much longer than the average of 1.5 years from 1900 to 1944.
See which countries.
Bro, it is about, okay, so what is the fastest way to create an enemy? I learned this at 21 years old. What is the fastest way to create an enemy? It's one thing we do that is the fastest way to create an enemy. Like the average person's temperament can go from 0 to 100 if you try to do this. This is the fastest way to create an enemy.
Disrespect you do something wrong to their kids or family.
It's cool. That's okay. Yeah. Now you'll be upset about it. You're like, listen, you don't know me, you don't know us. We'll move on. What do you think is the fastest way to create an enemy?
Going after their beliefs, Christianity, religion.
But in what way, though? If you just make fun of it and you're giving opinions about it, fine, let's have a debate. That's not an enemy. You ready? And
imposing,
the moment,
mandating.
Okay, there you go. And what is that? It's called forcing change. Mm-hmm. Forcing change. They're forcing you to accept LGBTQ. I'm having a conversation with my own kids that, hey, so let me get this straight. If I freaking play professional sports one day, I have to wear that flag on my jersey?
Yep.
What do you mean I have to wear that flag? So let me ask you a question. So that means, that's kind of like saying, if you play for this team, you have to wear a cross on your jersey. What if I'm a Muslim? Well, you mean to tell me I have to wear a flag? Why do I have to wear a pride flag on a freaking jersey? Tell me why I have to wear a flag. Does that automatically mean that everybody believes in that? No. Why do I have to wear a flag? You're forcing change. You don't force change. There are many people in the world that you can get away with forcing change. Many people in the world. 99% of people, you're okay forcing change. They'll fight it a little bit, and then eventually they'll do what? They'll conform. Dude, the 1% that makes shit freaking happen, you don't force change. Specifically, changes that have to do with your values and principles. Not something like this. Hey, guys, moving forward, when you guys come in here, you guys got to do your, what do you call it, scanning?
Thumb scan.
I don't know, thumb scan or whatever you do. Here's what you got to do. Why? Security alert's gone up. We have to do this. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, moving forward, when we're doing health insurance and enrollment, we have to do X, Y, Z first quarter every month. All right, I don't like to be part of a boring-ass meeting. I got it. But you're talking about forcing change? Like, hey, moving forward, your family has to accept the fact that this is Pride Month. Everything around the schools and sports teams have to be this. Fuck no. What are you talking about? No. That's forcing change. And that gets it to a point where one finally says, nah, man, what's the alternative? This is not normal to do this. No one is sitting there saying there's anything wrong with that. But you're forcing change. Stop it. Stop it. That's what they're doing. So the only reason one has ever thought about having a civil war is because people keep forcing change. They keep doing this. They keep doing this. They keep doing this. And you know what eventually happens? You're like, hey, bro, honestly.
One more time.
I swear to God. This is it. You crossed the line. We're not right here. You have a problem with me right now. You're forcing change. I'm not after here. You can put me in jail if you want to. You are not going to cross this line with my family and my kids. I'll go to jail for this. What do you want to do? Make a decision what you want to do right now. That's where a lot of people are at today. So I don't want to wake up and have to accept. And by the way, guess what? People on the other side, that's where they are with abortion. Mm-hmm. That's where they are with abortion. And guess what? I respect it. Go.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about too many feminists causing a civil war. I don't think that nobody's scared of that.
Wait a minute. There were patriots out there that were pointing out, and I believe correctly so, that a lot of the COVID measures used by our own government were dress rehearsals for when the government will use certain things to mandate change. You can't fly unless you had your COVID passport or whatever it is. And you know, there's a lot of, and I agree with them. When the government is forcing change, bad things happen. Look how strongly the reaction came from the 1% over the forcing COVID. Mm-hmm. We've seen it. We just saw a glimpse of what it could look like.
Yeah. So anyways, when I was talking to this guy, he gave me a complete different lens on where we are. And I actually understand, why, for example, for some of you guys, when you look at the last 30 days, okay, we've sold a lot of shirts. You know what was the top-selling shirt in the month of June? Rob, can you pull up the website? Go to Angry Patriot, vtmerch.com, really? Go to shirts. Angry Patriots was a #1 selling shirt last month, okay? #1. Nothing even came close to this. You know why? Because there's a lot of angry patriots, okay? There's a lot of angry patriots. By the way, put the link below for people that want to go to vtmerch.com. Order the angry. If you're like Vinny and you're an angry patriot, go sport the gear. There's a reason why this was #1 last month. People feel it. People are going through it. And I don't blame them, quite frankly. I don't blame them.
And can I ask you a question, though?
Yeah.
Is this a manufactured thing from them because they want us to be at a... They want that chaos, I believe. They want us to go nuts because once that happens, once the Civil War hits, Pat, the martial law and the military and everybody takes over, that's how they grab your guns. That's exactly what they want. So I urge people, don't let them fool you. Don't let them, everybody's black, white, race, this and that. Don't let them force shit down your throats. It's us against them, okay? But the moment you let them divide us, they're going to run away with the freaking gold. The hell with that.
Let's go to
Stay
next
smart.
Story. Let's go to the next story. Okay, so watch this. Like, tell me if this is anything normal that a person should be kicked off of a flight. Okay, again, more stuff to be angry about. Tell me if this is common sense. Women, Alleges, United Airlines removed them from the flight after misgendering attendant. Okay? Jenna Longoria, do you have the clip, Rob? Okay, play the clip. Watch this clip. Go ahead.
My son and I are at United Airlines waiting for our flight from San Francisco to Austin. And the flight attendant has denied access to us because he said that I made a derogatory comment about one of the flight attendants because I didn't use the right pronoun. Now they are forbidding us to get on the plane. I am with my son. He is 25 pounds. I've been carrying him for about 30 minutes. They denied us boarding priority. And now they're about to deny us to board the plane. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Vinny, thoughts on this?
Just unbelievable, especially coming from, and this goes to the point, PBD, about forcing people. You are forcing language on people. She's like, I don't know if it's a he, because the person, they elicited, she's like, they or whatever. And to kick them off for all the stuff that's happening with United, Tom, from planes, parts falling out of the sky, fires in the engines, all whistleblowers dying, losing bags, all the stuff that they're worrying about. This is exactly going to your point that they're forcing not only policies and people's morals to make sure somebody's language is the way that you want. I think is absolutely ridiculous, and I think that she should be able to sue them because what the hell are we even talking about, Tom? I know that United did a big DEI push. But I mean, what the hell is going on?
Well, during COVID, you had people. So let's go upstream, downstream.
Yeah.
Not too many years ago, you had flight attendants that really, honestly, rational flight attendants that were feeling that they were in a position where they were fearing for physical harm because they would tell people, you got to wear the mask. It's the law of the land, and the FAA has put it down. You got to wear a mask on a plane. I'm sorry, you got to do it. And people were taking it out on flight attendants. Now, on the other side, you have people that were hypersensitive flight attendants. Oh, you're going to do that? Then I'm going to use the vote that they have. They have the authority in the name of safety and control. 300 people together in an aluminum tube flying across the U.S. There's not a lot of space in there for things to get out of hand, right? So the flight attendants have the ability to say, I'm concerned about this person. I'm concerned about their demeanor. I'm concerned about them triggering other people. I want them off this flight. That's all they have to say. And the FAA is like, well, you flight attendants are the ones that are going to be a first responder, right? So the flight attendants play that card, and I think it's BS. I think they're playing cards in the name of sensitivity and indoctrination, while there are cases where I have personally seen flight attendants saying, hey, this person, you're not cooperating, you're getting loud with me, and I've seen them be reasonable, saying, you push this any further, I can ask you off this flight. I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. I want to get you to where you're going. Why can't we just calm down? And then they do it again. They said, look, I'm sorry. They go off. Here comes security. Security says, I'm sorry, you're being taken off the flight. But there are situations, and if this woman has faced one of those situations where a hypersensitive flight attendant is trying to make an example of somebody in the other direction, then that is BS. And I hope this woman takes action. And I hope United is paying attention, because people like Delta and American factually are kicking your butt. Just look at the stock.
Adam.
Ironically, this is happening on a United flight from San Francisco to Austin.
Weird.
So just a little irony right there. So United, you brought up the DEI, during, I think, 2020, they put out mandates, where they put DEI mandates into United, and they said, moving forward, 50% of all pilots are going to be female and 50% are going to be male. There was only one little problem with that. 95% of pilots are male. Yeah. So now you're just basically, hey, you random Asian lady who's kind of handicapped, lesbian. All right, you're flying the plane now. She's like, I don't even.
Boeing says the autopilot works. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. What's the worst that happened? But we've realized that we're hiring for merit, not skin color or race or gender. Can you fly the freaking plane? Can you land the plane safely? That's what we're going for. So interesting here, you have this mother, a.k.a. a birthing person who had that child because she has a uterus, a.k.a. a front hole, what they want to call these things. But I do understand the ridiculousness of playing the he, she, they, them game when you're just trying to get on your freaking flight. And if you read the details of this thing, you know, there was a conversation of she had too much luggage or thyroid medicine. There was a situation. And I can understand from her perspective, she's probably just like, look, you know, you, they, them, I
That's
don't
exactly
care
what it was. That's exactly what it was.
you got going on, dude.
I just got to get on the plane and leave.
Flight. I got my baby in my hand. Like, have a little empathy, have a little sympathy. And they're like, it's ma'am.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So-
that's exactly what it is. She says, I said, look, at the flight attendant, I don't know he, she, they. I'm not versed in pronouns. Can you help me with my son? And he said, ma'am, you're going to have to step off the plane. She further detailed that the staffer initially refused to let her pre-board with her son, but later allowed it. And after thanking him by saying, thank you, sir, the staffer appeared upset. By the way, here's what you have to say. Here's what you have to know. This is United Airlines, right? Where a story came out a couple months ago. Rob, do me a favor and pull up this clip if you could. If you could be kind enough to pull up this clip. And this is the United Airlines CEO. Have you ever seen this?
No.
I'm going to show it to you. I think it's worth seeing, Vinny.
Is he doing good, wholesome stuff?
Just watch some of this stuff to see why we're not surprised, Rob. If you can pull up this story, it's very telling why we should not be surprised that a United Airlines would do such a thing.
And this is the active right now CEO.
Is the CEO, Scott Kirby. Let me see if he's active.
Okay.
This story is of 6 months ago. Okay. So this is Scott Kirby.
Oh, there he is.
United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby's viral drag queen video sparks outrage.
You don't say.
Wait a minute. Go a little lower. Go all the way down to the bottom.
He looks like a little rascal.
Let me read it real quick.
Okay.
So Scott Kirby, CEO, is facing severe backlash after a video of him dancing while dressed as a drag queen has resurfaced online. Recently, the 56-year-old was heavily criticized for a 2021 interview where he explained his company's diversity initiatives. After the years-old video went viral on social media, Kirby raised many eyebrows about the efficiency of workers at United Airlines. Go to the bottom and play the video, Rob.
Not the only thing he raised.
This is the CEO of United Airlines.
What the That's him?
That's him.
Oh my God.
You can pause it at this point. I'm about to.
Oh my God!
That wasn't Lady Gaga.
Do you see now why America is angry?
Yep.
Do you see now why America's sitting there saying, "Here's a mother holding her child"? By the way, to the mothers who are watching this podcast, okay, have you ever gone on a flight where anything and everything that can go wrong with your kid went wrong? When they pooped in the diaper and it leaked, you go to the bathroom to clean it, you get poop on your clothes, on your freaking hands, you're trying to wash it, you smell like crap, the soap isn't good, you got 3 minutes to board the plane, and you're trying to feed the kid. He's screaming, he's crying, nothing is going. You ever been on, has that ever happened to you? So I've seen that many times. We got 4 kids. I used to sit on flights and I used to be like, it's freaking irresponsible parents. Tell your kid to be quiet. And then I'll never forget one time we're on a flight. Oh my gosh. Senna was
nuts?
not having it. And we were in first class. You go first class, so it's peaceful.
Yeah.
Our entire family's first class. She screamed for an hour and a half straight. I picked her up to walk her. She didn't want to walk with me. Goes to Jen, screaming for an hour and a half. We did the ear stuff, everything, the cups, everything you do. And we're just looking at everybody like, what do you want me to tell you at this point, bro?
Sorry.
What do you want me to tell you? And at that moment, how bad you wanted to get off that plane. You know how bad you want to get off that plane? And you're sitting there because she misgender or he, she, they, whatever you want. Get the hell out of here, man. You guys are delusional to think what you're doing. United Airlines. Change your company's name to Divided Airlines, not United Airlines.
Divided.
You are not a United Airlines, okay? Stop it. Immediate, what's the plea that AOC made to impeach, what do you call it?
I'm drawing up article impeachment against the Supreme Court as soon as we're back in session.
Let's do the same thing to change their names from United to Divided Airlines. shitty situation there. But if you see the CEOs like that,
no, I get it.
That makes sense.
They should just start charging extra for extra pronouns.
Don't be upset, folks.
Yeah.
Don't be upset.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Everything rises and falls on leadership. We saw what happened there. Now let's go to trucks. Here we go. John Deere. Tom, I want your thoughts on this because this is a little bit frustrating. John Deere to execute big layoffs in 2 states. And what do they plan on doing? Shifting those jobs to Mexico. Okay? All right, here we go. John Deere announced layoffs affecting 610 employees on August 30th, including 280 in East Moline, Illinois, and 230 in Davenport, Iowa, with an additional 100 employees at Dubuque, Iowa plant impacted. The company cited rising operational costs and declining market demand and will offer supplemental unemployment benefits, profit-sharing options, and health benefits. The company plans to move the manufacturing of skid steer loader and compact track loader from Dubuque to Mexico by the end of 2026. This follows a 2022 decision to shift part of its tractor and cab assembly operations from Waterloo, Iowa to Mexico. John Deere estimates about 250 production employees could be affected, but expect attrition and a tight job market to mitigate the impact. Tom.
Well, where are they moving from? 2 blue states. 2 blue states. Where are the governors? The governors have the ability to do economic incentives. We read all about that. People in Virginia were upset. Oh, we're going to give all this excess money to Amazon to build a headquarters there. And then the people in New York were upset that the state of New York was going to give a bunch of money. Governors have control. And what you have here is somebody saying, I can't operate in your state. The costs are there. So we're going to move the jobs to Mexico. And I don't know why Democrats would be so upset about this, because maybe the Mexicans working at the factories that they build in Mexico be the same people that could be working in Arizona because they just
they're there anyway.
Which office do you want? Just walk across.
Just walk across, yeah.
And so what you have here is a simple economic reality being by a long-standing U.S. manufacturer. John Deere's been around forever, and they're simply looking at it and saying, you're not giving me the playing field where I can make it. And so, and by the way, they're trying to give transition to these people. They don't hate the workers. They want to give them extended unemployment benefits. In other words, we want to help you beyond to find other jobs, beyond even what your state will do for you. So, you look at this, let me tell you, this is the unintended consequences of bad economic policies. And now, John Deere looks at it and says, well, this is the playing field Bidenomics wants to get me, then this is what I'm going to do. And it's like, congratulations, you got what you caused.
Adam.
Well, if you look at the numbers here, I haven't driven a tractor since I was in North Carolina back in the day. It doesn't seem like there's that many people moving the jobs, but it's sort of like the canary in the coal mine. It's only affecting 610 employees, Illinois and Davenport, Iowa to Mexico. But then there's another story here. It's interesting because it's kind of part of this narrative, how another company, a tractor supply company, because John Deere is a tractor company, yes?
You're damn right it is.
That's right. Here's another story on the Wall Street Journal. After conservative activist Robbie Starbuck criticized Tractor Supply's DEI efforts on social media, the company quickly decided to end its DEI programs and did it quickly. So it turns out, and this kind of goes to what we were talking about with the airlines a second ago. Who do you think is buying Tractor Supplies?
Got conservatives out in red state, white people.
White rural men. So when you try to implement DEI to a tractor company, let's get all the gays, the blacks, the midgets of this, and they're like, yeah, we don't want any tractor supply companies. So it turns out this story completely backfired. And it even says here, this is Wall Street Journal, y'all. Tractor Supply, a retailer with a customer base described as heavily more male and rural.
You think?
Saw increasing online backlash.
Yeah, you don't find those farms in downtown Seattle.
And employees. So, it's the same thing we saw with Bud Light. I don't see too many Dylan Mulvaney trans people being like, it's Bud Light time at March Madness. No, dudes, college guys drink Bud Light. So it's just further proof that the DEI mandates the force ain't gonna work. You know, it's next thing you know, you're gonna have Bass Pro Shop becoming this DEI bastion of LGBTQIA. It's not gonna happen. So.
And they went
DEI programs. By the way, didn't they the one AI company change DEI to MEI? He said moving forward, it's
Merit.
no longer diversity, equity, inclusion. It's merit, excellence, and intelligence. So there you go.
Tom.
And these guys went into Ed. Tractor Supply stated it has eliminated DEI roles and carbon emission goals and stopped sponsoring pride festivals and voting campaigns. In other words, they adopted all this stuff because they got all this ungodly pressure politically and from the media. And now the one person who stands tall, I agree with Pat. The Supreme Court will stand tall when things happen with government. You know who stands tall in the economy? The frickin' customer. And the customers have said, you know what? I don't know why you did this. Every time I buy stuff from Tractor Supply, I'm supporting all this. And they're coming back saying, you know what? You're right. We had pressures. We did this. But now guess what? DEI gone. Carbon emission goals gone. Pride festivals and voting campaigns gone. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard you and we're back.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, you're going to move it to Mexico. Forget about the DEI and forget about all this other stuff. You're going to move it to Mexico. John Deere, I don't know if you're following anything with politics. If you're not, you're about to make a very dumb mistake. So you mean to tell me, you, John Deere, okay, who has a customer base that loves America, farmers, and you're going to decide to move these jobs to Mexico? Do you know if this guy who is from New York that lives in Florida now, part-time, do you know if he becomes president, what kind of tariffs he's going to give to you to sell your equipment back to America? Do you know what he's going to do? Wait for a massive surprise. Who the hell sits on this board to think this is a good move? Who sits on this board to think this is a good strategy move right now, especially after what happened with the debate? I don't know. Not very smart. The guy's going to be waiting like this to give tariffs the moment you move your employees out to Mexico from U.S. But anyways, all right, we cover a lot of different stories, gang. For those of you guys competing for the Minnect, go download the app. Rob, put up a QR code. Go download the app. Start Minnect. And guys, on email, you send a cold email to anybody, less than 1% chance someone's going to respond to you. On Instagram DM, less than 3%. Twitter is 5%. LinkedIn is 8%. The numbers came back with Minnect. 94% response rate. You ask a question, there's a 94% chance they're going to respond because you're paying for it. And they respond back even faster. Download the app. It's becoming the many people are calling this now the top networking app because people are actually doing business with each other. Sick. The number of testimonies I'm hearing of people using Minnect in so many creative ways is absolutely insane. Start competing, participate, use the app, Minnect each other. And Vinny has officially over 3,000 Minnects, by the way.
I love everybody. Thank you, guys.
Tom is 15, 20 away, so Minnect with Tom and put him over 3,000. Vinny's the first ever to get over 3,000 on Minnect. Looking forward to seeing many of you guys start a Minnect account yourself. God bless everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.